race is about to get underway.
Safety car peels in then. 125 minutes of racing around Donington Park for the TEGIWA Clubman Enduro Championship. Get underway now. Lights have gone out and away we go. And it's Carl Swift and Andy Marston then, but it's Marston that's made the best of the starts. Or has he? Swift goes down the inside into Redgate Corner for the first time. Big grid of cars. They're still coming out of Goddard's as the leads are already at Hollywood. It is such a huge field that we have. They're still coming out. I think that's finally it. But there we go. It's the Carl Swift car leading, and it's Marston in second place.
And you mentioned Adam Blair. He's third already, I think, from sixth. Marston's car, they had a bit of fluid coming out of it. I think it's just where it's overfilled. But there's cars almost on the grass there coming down in towards the old hairpin where it's very, very busy. But for second place, here comes Adam Blair then in that Audi TT, right on terms with Andy Marston, who's been a winner in club enduro races in the past. You've got the little Lotus there, Liam Bidgeway being absolutely dwarfed by all the cars around him. But he just about managed to squeeze through. Here's Steve Cheatham, who's chasing after, I think, the David Griffin car. There's another of the Lotuses. That's the Exige Cup car just in front of the 13 car. That's the car started by Matt Fazy. You've also got David Goodin's E36 M3 involved in all of that. So here's the Bidgeway, Griffin and Sammy Venables battle in that newly built BMW M4. That's a car that's been built by the Elite Motorsport team. And down there as well, there's Goodin under pressure from Julian McBride and his newly liveried E46 M3. So a busy first lap of the race, as we've come to expect from the TEGIWA Club Enduro races, but it's not all good for everybody.
No, and that is the number 4 Reese Lysett car making the switch from F1000, showing with ex-rallyman Steve Brockington in the Together We Progress Racing entry. It's not gone well for that car so far. Might be an early pit visitor. So end of lap 1 then. Carl Swift it is that leads by 1.23 seconds from Andy Marston in second place. Adam Blair is in third. Steve Laidlaw is in fourth position in the number 100 Seat Leon TCR car as well, the all Yorkshire team. And then in fifth place it's the 49 car, which is the Will Stacey Lotus Elise.
That's right, big puff of smoke there out the side of the E90 M3 of David Griffin, who hasn't had the best of starts. He started 5th. He's dropped to 9th behind Leon Bidgeway's Lotus Exige. There's Adam Blair in that fantastic looking Audi TT. Here's Will Stacey in the upgraded Lotus Elise. He was winner hit this meeting a year ago in Class B. He now runs in Class A and he's running up there in 5th position. As the field flow their way through, it's free of breath through Coppice Corner, and through the middle goes Leon Bidgeway. He was getting past Matthew Hampson there and trying also to pass David Griffin, but then the Lotus doesn't have the power down the straights. It all equalises out on power to weight ratio, so the lighter weighted cars will be quicker through the corners, but the bigger, more powerful cars obviously quicker down the straights, and Leon Bidgeway manages to just about keep Sammy Venables at bay.
Lot of speed. This is being carried by Steve Cheatham. This, what is it? The number 43 Boxster. You can see the hydration system he's got on board there as well, which will be needed because he's driving that car solo for 125 minutes. The man from Manchester.
And Bidgeway, they're under pressure from Venables. He's in the middle of a three-wide battle there almost with Steve Cheatham. There's the Audi coming through just behind. That car was started by Mark Rice. They qualified 19th and they'd got up to 15th by the end of the first lap. The Audi RS3. We haven't seen many of these race in the UK, so great to have it here in the Club Enduro Championship. Not great for everyone, including the Volkswagen Sirocco, this car that's come from from Eastern Europe. Stuart Mead has been involved in an incident.
Yeah, and it looks like there's been a touch there, doesn't there, with the BMW also in shot there, which I think was the Jonathan Barrett Saxon Motorsport car number 7. Quite possibly. 63 car for Stuart Mead, as you say, the 1992 European Superkart champion has come to grief there as well in the car, which shares with the very experienced John Maudsley.
Yeah, that was a car they've only got recently. As I said, apparently that's an Eastern European touring car that they've brought over for this year. Car number 10 there round the outside with Robert Fennick, who is sharing with Beechdean's Andrew Howard for this race, and he's come up through the order, it seems, at the start of this race.
Yeah, so we've got those 2 cars stranded there at the Melbourne hairpin. So
safety car,
I was about to anticipate that might be required, but there we see the flag on screen and the board as well. Safety car is out. Well, this is too early for pit stops, of course, because the pit lane window isn't open yet, and it doesn't open until we've had 30 minutes.
That's right. So we're a little way away from that. So the first appearance, I think, of we had one in bike sports, didn't we?
We did.
But first appearance sort of in the beginning of the race, anyway, for the 750 Motor Club safety car. So Rob Baker will be picked up by that. So there's just a lapped car that will have to be waved through. But then Rob Baker in that Seat Leon Cupra TCR. I'm not sure if that's the same car they raced last year, because that's in a different livery. It looks like the newer type of Seat. Can't be sure of that, but we might get confirmation.
I've not had any information provided specifically on that car. Some encouragement for Ben Rushworth on the YouTube comments. He is running in 6th place at the moment in the Seat. His first time out in Club Enduro, the Hot Hats champion from a couple of years ago, sat out the last couple of years due to the hassle and the boom of his own business. So good news that Ben's business is going well. Machina Motorsport.
He's been invited along, hasn't he, by Corton Miller, who runs that car. And I think he shares it with a former Time Attack racer, James Ramsden. And Ben Rushworth is currently in 6th, where he qualified in 8th. So he gained a couple of places at the start there. And his lap times are it's quicker than 2 cars in front. So they might be able to make progress once this safety car period is over. But there's rescue units down there at the Melbourne Loop. So it'll be a few moments before we get any more racing. Let's talk about the classes. We haven't really had a chance to do that, have we? So in Class B, it's Scott Parkin making his 2nd race in Club Enduro. We saw Scott Parkin out at the end of last year in a Class A car. Now he's out in his, I think it's a diesel Volkswagen Golf, and he's got himself up ahead of Chris Freeman and Jonathan Packer. So it's all golfs to the front of Class B. And then in Class C, it's Graham Kelly's BMW 325i that leads from that free driver shared car, which with them we're having to make an extra pit stop. It's not going to be ideal. That's Joe Oswick that starts that one, and 3rd in class is car number 3, John Munro, starting the Mazda MX-5 with Nick Dougal, who a couple of days ago was racing a Mazda 2 at Snetterton. So going a bit quicker this weekend in an MX-5.
Not sure what all of Matt thinks. Maybe he's just doing this to entertain us. Very good, Matt. Yeah. Career in glove puppetry beckons. So that's Matt Fazy in the 13 car, starting that Porsche Cayman 2-litre turbo engine machine. It's just on the classes. Class A, by the way, is for cars up to 300 brake horsepower per tonne. Class B up for 240 brake horsepower per tonne the limit. Class C up to 180 brake horsepower per tonne. There's also this year a new innovation. There's the Clubman Cup, which is for cars that enter production prior to 2010 and don't have an aftermarket sequential gearbox. So there's a few entries in that. Who's leading that? Can we work that one out at this stage?
Pretty sure it's Liam Bidway, who is currently 8th. Ahead of... Where is Steve Cheatham got to? Oh, he's 10th, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, he's failed me there for a second. Yeah. So Steve Cheatham will be 2nd in the Clubman Cup, and then there's the others, I think, quite a bit further down. There's not many cars in the top class overall that are also competing in the Clubman Cup, which score their own points for the first time this year for the slightly older, perhaps a bit less modified cars.
Yeah, and that they also get points within classes A, B and C as well, based on their overall finishing position too. But it's an extra sort of something to race for the old guys. Just at the back of shot there, let's see if we can see this run through shot. You can see the GR Yaris, the white and red and black car. That's being driven by Cam Walton, and he, of course, the MR2 Class B champion from last year. But this is the very first time that we've had one of these GR Yarises racing in the UK. It's been prepared by Rogue Motorsport, although and that's been going on since last November, although Cam has been getting a bit more hands-on with it in recent times. Of course, it's got the 1.6-litre 3-cylinder turbo petrol engine in it. There we're watching the number 3 car go through. That's John Munro at the moment, the man who produces videos for racing games, the MX-5 or the Max-5 champion in 2016. He's showing that car with Nick Dougal. That's another TWP entered machine. Were those safety car lights out, did I spot, when safety car just cut through shot
I
there?
don't think so,
No,
because there's still rescue crews down at the hairpin, I can see.
My eyes deceived me then. Yeah, they're still very much on, aren't they?
So obviously this can help a couple of people out. One, those who fuel tanks aren't so good, so therefore they're saving fuel here. So therefore they can go longer into the race. And it also is helping out anyone who's got perhaps a slightly slower or less experienced driver starting the race. And we always see Andy Schulze go well in second half of these races, don't we? That car started third. Matthew Hampson's dropped to 13th so far. But of course, they're not losing time here. And Andy Schulze has proved to be very quick in that BMW E46 M3. So a couple of types of people being helped out by this early safety car.
For those watching the live stream, let's just explain the colours on the timing tower. So the pale blue, which is everyone in the top 10 at the moment, is a Class A car. The red, that is for cars in Class B. And the darker blue colour, those are the cars in Class C. Let's say those splits at 300, 240 and 180 brake horsepower per tonne. So that's just a bit of an explanation for those watching on the live stream at 750mc.co.uk. I'll start that again, 750mc.co.uk/live, or via Alpha Live. You can find them on YouTube as well. Alpha Live producing all of the footage here this weekend. Still under safety car here at Donington Park. We've had just about 11.5 minutes of racing, although quite a bit of that, and that's now been behind the safety car. We're going to get at least one more lap behind it as well. A quick some birthday greetings to Julia Harding, one of our volunteer marshals. I think she's having her 50th birthday, if not today then sometime quite soon. Very many happy returns of the day, whichever day it is, to Julia Harding. And once again, many thanks to all of the marshals who support the 750 Motor Club in such good numbers wherever we go around the country, but particularly here at Donington Park. It's been a busy weekend for Donington regulars because they had the two-day Masters meeting over the past couple of days to enjoy as well, or on Friday and Saturday, I should say, in that case. There's that Yaris again. The reason I talk about Yaris is I did used to drive an older shape Yaris many years ago, but it's nice to see that car out there for Cam Walton.
And it's the newest car on the grid as well, I should think, or with the Seats as well.
Yes, one of the most modern.
2021 spec car, and the car that really was built, the Gazoo Racing version of the Yaris, so they could go World Rally Championship with it, and that has been very successful for Toyota. And Rogue Motorsport have got a close association with Toyota, haven't they?
They do, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And Cam himself, while we're just thinking about that car, he's got experience racing in Australia. He was raced out there in the Toyota 86 Racing Series. He was a championship contender to the final round in his rookie season. That supported V8 supercars, and he got the fastest lap at Bathurst as well. He says that was a very cool experience. Well, I should think it probably was. He got the lap record at Sandown as well. And he was also a race engineer at the TCR Australia Championships, winning Hyundai i30N TCR for HMO Customer Racing. Will Brown, the drivers' champion that year in Australian TCR.
You mentioned Adam Blair earlier. It's cool to have him back out racing, isn't it, with this Audi TT? You say back in British Formula 3, had about 40 car entries when he raced in the National Championship a couple of decades ago. I think he's done some enduro car racing, hasn't he?
Yes.
Recently, but this is a big speed increase from there, and he's running really well. He got from 6th to 3rd in about a corner early on, and going well in what is a really nicely prepared Audi TT, which I think is owned by Ryan Parkin. He's a co-driver with the 2-litre TFSI engine for the Dark Side Developments driver. And that's a car that was built by Slide Sports for the Volkswagen Racing Cup a few years ago.
Just going back to Adam Blair, I did pop onto his website yesterday, which is well worth a visit, because in his driver profile, he didn't just list all of his racing achievements, he gave an excuse as to why he didn't do better in each case, including, I think, in Formula 1 in 1998, when apparently all of the first 3 cars in the championship were deemed to be illegal. His wasn't. He was 4th, but they decided not to disqualify them anyway. Anyway, safety cars back in, racing is back underway in the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship, and it's Carl Swift then that leads away from Andy Marston in 2nd, and then it is that man Adam Blair in 3rd place in the the Audi.
And Andy Marston's made a great restart. He's right on time with Cole Swift. Here comes Ben Rushworth. He goes up the inside of Will Stacey, but Will Stacey with a lighter car hangs on around the outside. We know that Ben Rushworth can race really well. He won the Hot Hatch Championship, and he won pretty much every Hot Hatch race a few years ago, and he's right there with Will Stacey, again, who is a very successful driver in this championship and in Lotus Cup races in the past as well. There's a couple of TCR cars together. That was Matt Wallace ahead of Mark Grice, who continued to make progress at the end before the safety car come in, because he's up to the top 12 now in that Audi. The Seat and the Audi, basically the same car with a different body kit on it, both built by Seat Sport, I think, part of the same group, and already more problems. This is the BMW 328i that's got Joel Oswick starting it.
Yeah, and he stopped it at Redgate Corner in a kind of exposed position, so we'll see what happens with that.
Well, Ben Rushworth's lost a place, so that's not in the plan. Dave Griffin, who didn't make the best of starts in this fantastic-looking E90 M3, is up into the top 6. He did qualify 5th, did Dave Griffin. He's an Australian driver, isn't he, Dave? And he's up there inside the top 6. As Steve Laidlaw there returning to 750 Motor Club Racing, he's 4th. In another of the Seats. The Seats are sort of scattered all the way through the top 20 or so, aren't they? And with this balancer performance type of method that 750 Road Club have put in for this season, so the Seats fit nicely inside Class A. And very sideways there was Adam Blair, was it?
Yeah, because that was into the yellow flag zone, I think, wasn't it? So I wonder if he cottoned on late that there was a yellow flag. I'm not quite sure, but we couldn't see where the yellow flag was.
Well, we know that drivers need to keep in full control of their cars during yellow flag zones.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you don't, then action will be taken.
Well, the tyre is rubbing on the bodywork, isn't it? That's what's going on for Dave Griffin.
That's Chris Freeman very slow through Redgate and Hollywood and delaying cars behind him.
So we still have got yellows there at Redgate Corner, so that will all be kept an eye on. Here is Ben Rushworth then. He's not sliding around here, and this is very unusual. I wonder if there's fluid down at Redgate, because there's been at least 3 cars that have had a moment, haven't there?
Yeah, that was Lewis Rose in the Honda Civic EP3.
Luke Handley here is way down the order, 23rd, which is something like 6th in class. Of course, he was a champion for the last 2 years in Class B.
As we are watching the 2 cars here disputing 3rd and 4th position, but we're going to get the safety car again with that situation up at Redgate Corner. So a little bit of excitement for 3 or 4 minutes, and then we're back into safety car order again, I'm afraid. Is the safety car? Yeah, the safety car is waiting at the end of the pit lane. Hopefully it will pick up the race leader. It's got a back marker just going through first, which is the James Miller Renault Clio 197. Then the safety car moves out onto track, and it is just about going to pick up Carl Swift, the very experienced Carl Swift, and Andy Marston as well. So we've had less than 20 minutes. We're now on to our 2nd safety car period. Adam Blair there in 3rd place, just taking sort of an interesting line. I don't know if he was aware that there's maybe something down on the circuit on the normal racing line there.
Yeah, I assume that's what's happened, that 3 drivers have had a moment down there, and we saw that BMW expire 1 lap earlier. So whether the track will need to be dressed before we carry on with this race, and whether that will mean we get this safety car period that takes us into the pit window.
Yeah, because it will open in 11 minutes time or so, won't it? And I think some people already on the feed have suggested that there'll be a safety car just as soon as the safety car will head out as soon as the pit lane window is open. Well, it might be out when the pit lane window does open. Suggestions that the this is the slippery surface flag out there now, to no one's great surprise. But the Audi TT being driven by Adam Blair looks like the ex-Simon Walton car, which is more than possible, I think, because that was a car prepared for the VW Cup, which did allow Audis in it.
Yeah, Slide Sports, which I think could well be the case.
Is that reslice it near the bottom of the timing screen? Yes, I'm afraid it is.
Yeah, he's made 2 pit stops now. That car's just come down the pits again.
Yeah, first time racing with a roof, of course. He's done F1000 for a couple of seasons now. Teenager from West Midlands.
Well, racing at the moment might be maybe not be the term that he's using.
He's doing some driving, certainly, but perhaps not as much of it as he would like.
just saw going through there the Ginetta G40, which is out with Matthew Tidmarsh and Chris Webster have upgraded from a Mazda MX-5 in Class B to a Ginetta G40 in Class B, so from Class C to Class B. So great to have that out, and that is out in Gulf colours. I think I saw at one point that was sort of in Rothko style livery. They, of course, have the big collection of Gulf coloured race cars, I think, down in Surrey.
13 back on board for some more entertainment, courtesy of Matt Fazy. What's he going to do this time? At the moment, he's keeping his hands on steering wheel, which is probably an excellent idea. Where is he in the order?
He's moved up the third in Class B. Scott Parkin still leads. Jonathan Packer is now second. I think the pole man, Chris Freeman's dropped to fourth. So up to third for Matt Fazy.
Talking of Scott Parkin leading Class B, I think, I don't know if you've mentioned already, but it's the first time he's raced against his brother Ryan, who of course is sharing with Adam Blair in the number 11, twin brother indeed, Ryan Parkin. But they're in different classes, which I think they've done deliberately to avoid too much in the way of conflict.
Because of course they had this two-driver effort in multiple cars, didn't they, at the Burkitt Relay?
That's right, as they have done for a couple of years actually, I think.
Until one car broke down, it was all looking quite good.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's the Toyota.
Yeah, there it is. That's the Cam Walton car, and I do think they look great, those little GR Yaris's, I think, and I know that they've been hugely popular on the road. Lots of people have snapped them up. I did have a good think about it myself at one point, because wonderful little car.
It's also in the Toyota Works livery, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So it looks really good. Rogue Motorsport have done a good job with that to get that ready for racing in the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship. It is running within Class A, sort of well down the order within Class A, but it does just have that 3-cylinder, 1.6 litre turbocharged engine. Safety car continuing on for another lap. It looks like that fluid spill has been dealt with. It wasn't a particularly long fluid spill, just from the sort of pit lane exit to the point at which that car stopped, which was the 235 car, wasn't it, the Joel Oswick car?
All we need to do now is try and encourage Alfin Evans or something like that to come out and share the car.
Oh, yeah, there's an idea. Patrick Mortel can work on that one, I'm sure.
Or Sebastian Ogier, of course, has stopped rallying now and has started his circuit racing career.
Well, perfect. It's written in the stars. So
at the moment, though, it looks like a car that's not quite on the front end of Class A pace, doesn't it?
No, and I guess there's a bit of development to do, and it's going to be a very different car to those Leon TCRs and the sort of beefy BMW M3s as well at the front end. It's going to be very difficult to get it onto them, but I'm sure it won't stop Rogue Motorsport and Cam, who's sort of a race engineer in his own right, doing what's required to get that closer to the sharp end.
There's not many 3-cylinder racing cars either, is there? Especially not in the 750 Motor Club.
Did you not commentate on 50 odd of them yesterday? Those 3-cylinders, aren't they?
Not the 750 Motor Club.
Citrusy ones, no. Anyway.
And depends what your term of racing car is.
True. Steve Cheatham is who we're on board with at the moment in the number 43 car, the drive from Manchester in the Porsche Boxster. Long-time Porsche racer, of course. He's just sort of going through shot there as well.
There's the Class B leader there, the Diesel Golf of Scott Parkin, and then the Class B car directly behind. The Class B car is a bit further down the overall order than sometime we expect, because there are so many Class A cars this year, especially at this first meeting. Class C not so well presented here, but there are a lot more registrations, I understand, so expect Class C to expand as the season goes on.
Yeah, the Club Enduro calendar this year, where does that take us? We go to Croft at the end of May for the second round of the championship, then Spa-Francorchamps for 2, I think, 100-minute races there on the 8th and 9th of July.
You sure it's 2 races this year?
I believe so.
Oh, just because it said round 1 on
it's one round, but it's a joint combined result. 31st of July, Snetterton 300, 21st of August, Silverstone International. Snetterton 300 is the 180-minute race. Lights are out on the safety car, by the way, so getting racing underway shortly. Silverstone International, Anglesey. Be good to go back there with Club Enduro, and Alton Park to round out the season.
Yeah, I'm sure people are hoping it's not going to be hot as hot at Snetterton as it was 1 year ago. Otherwise,
especially if you're doing a single driver.
Exactly. Well, there were people pulling out last year because it was too hot. Anyway, it's not that hot here. It's warm enough for Easter Monday, and we're about to get racing back underway. The previous restart, Andy Marston had a go at getting past Cole Swift. Let's see if he can do it again. We're about 25 minutes in, so it'll be 5 minutes to the pit window opens, and Cole Swift has got round the hairpin really well and accelerated away from Andy Marston.
It's, that Reese Lysett car, that's had gearbox issues, by the way, is the news on that one. So, oh, what a big moment for Cole Swift, and he's off! He's off! He's going to be into the gravel, surely, on the restart. Yes, he is. He's found some fluid that wasn't dressed, I think, more than likely, and he's going to resume, but he's going to resume in 4th or 5th or 6th position.
Nobody else went off, so whether he just changed the brake bias on the car that was wrong, I don't know. But it was a big moment, that is for sure. He managed to keep it out the barriers, and he managed to keep it without losing too many positions. Everybody else is getting into Redgate with no problems. So yeah, very odd and a strange, an unusual mistake from Cole Swift. Let's see if we can work out how he went off with a replay here on Alpha Live. So he went across the line. Everybody else is on the same line as him. And as soon as he brakes, it does seem like a brake bias problem rather than anything else. But
yeah, it seems to be. It wasn't fluid, I don't think, but we'll see. Well, we won't hear from Cole Swift during the race, of course. We might hear from him if he wins it, which now will be a taller order than it was. But it would be useful to find out from Carl, if we can, at some point later on, or from his team possibly. Matt Sutton will be down there in the pit lane. What the situation was with there. We're only 3 minutes away, or just 4 minutes away actually, from the pit lane window opening.
TCR racing out on track between Matt Wallace and between Mark Rice there, Sayat versus Audi. They've got a Porsche in front of them, which is Steve Cheatham's Boxster. In a Class B battle here, that's Matt Fazy going down the inside of Jonathan Packer for second. But here's our new race leader then, Andy Marston, ahead of Adam Blair. Andy Marston goes right to the right-hand side of the circuit, so he is concerned that there could be fluid down after seeing what happened in front of him. There's Cole Swift. He gets 4th place back from Will Stacey down the inside into Redgate corner, so it hasn't put him off much, and really he didn't lose much time considering what happened. And now we can ride on board with Steve Cheatham, who behind him has Mark Rice now, because Mark Rice has got ahead of Matthew Wallace. And down the Craner curves, how quick are these cars downhill? Very quick indeed. Then down a gear into the old hairpin, well over the curbs on the right-hand side of the track, then letting the car run out wide over the curbs on the left, but going no further, because if you do, you'll get track limits. And then climbing up the hill through Schwartz curve, through the left-hander, then getting the car straight before braking down a gear into McLean's, and all while trying to keep Mark Rice's Audi RS3 behind him.
Yeah, I'm sure we could do with a rear-facing camera in Steve Cheatham's car at the moment, but it's a front-facing one. He's got a couple of cars not too far behind him. As there we see the Will Stacey car, which is back down to 5th position now that Carl Swift's got back up into P4. There is Steve Cheatham in that 10th position, number 43 car, with just behind him, number 27.
That's the diesel Gulf, isn't it, that's smoking, so that's not to be worried about. And Cole Swift gets 3rd up the inside of Steve Laidlaw, making his debut in the Club Enduro Championship in that Sayat Lane. And now Steve Cheatham sideways, trying to brake as late as he dared. Had Mark Rice come down the inside, bit of opposite lock as Steve Cheatham accelerates, tries to find another gear, didn't go quite as well as he planned that gear change, and that allows this Audi RS3 to just pull away a little bit in the hands of Mark Rice. He takes a much wider line in the front-wheel drive Audi. The rear-wheel drive Porsche then goes through, goes up a gear. It's one of the Clubman Cup competitors for the older cars without a sequential box. But here is a change for what is 8th position, because Sammy Venables has got ahead of Liam Bidgeway heading down the start and finish line. But Bidgeway trying to fight back. He is the Clubman Cup leader in that Lotus Exige. And we won't be too much longer in before we get into lap traffic with the Class C cars, obviously with a lot less power than the leading machines.
Yeah, that's the 23 car, which is being driven at the moment by James Miller, but Sarah Dennis will take that over. James Miller, I think, having his first race. It is his first ever race, first time around Donington Park as well. Driver of car number 23, but we're going back up the field to look at number 27, up into the top 10 now. Mark Rice has got ahead of Steve Cheatham. And just behind them are the Wallace's Matt Wallace in the number 6 car at the moment. And there, coming up a position, is number 12, Scott Parkin.
Yeah, the Class B leader getting past Matthew Hampson and putting some Class A cars between himself and Jonathan Packer, who's moved from Class C to Class B, from Honda Civic to Volkswagen Golf for this season. And therefore he's now got a bit of work to do to catch up the class leader Scott Parkin. But Scott Parkin was spectacular there, getting down the inside into McLean. So there's Sammy Venables in now 8th, pulling away from Liam Bidray, but he is being caught by Mark Rice, and Steve Cheatham is 11th with this great big rear wing on the back of the Porsche Boxster.
Yeah, absolutely right. And a bit further up, we can see it's very close here.
Change for second.
And it is a change, isn't it? Yes, it is indeed. So through to second place has gone the number 1 car, Carl Swift, fighting back. He's 3.2 seconds behind Swift now. He's got ahead of Adam Blair in the Audi. He's now got 3.2 seconds to catch Andy Martin in the BMW M3 out at the front of the field at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. So Andy Marston in this E46 M3 GTR that he got towards the end of last year. Now that's Class B. Scott Parkin now behind the Porsche Cayman. Perhaps I missed that in all of that then. So Matt Fazy has got to the front of Class B. No, so that was Scott Parkin trying to chase him, and he is catching him. There's only a couple of attempts between them now. Meanwhile, up front, that gap coming down from Andy Marston to Cole Swift, and Adam Blair trying to go with Cole Swift, but a much wider line in the Audi TT. As now the pit window is open because we've had 30 minutes of racing. We've got Will Stacey going well in that Lotus in this pack, which is being headed in 4th place by Steve Laidlaw, who shares with his son, which is Sam Laidlaw, who will be getting in later on. And then behind is Dave Griffin, who's got ahead of Will Stacey then at the start of this lap. Then Ben Rushworth in the Seat Leon behind. And a gap back, who just lapped that Clio we mentioned, in 8th position is Sammy Venables, but he's some 5 seconds behind this battle that we watch, which includes BMW, Seat and Lotus.
It does, and Ben Rushworth at the back of that little group in 7th position. Number 2, we're on board here with Matt Fazy then. Number 13.
Adam Blair is being given a penalty already for exceeding track limits of 5 seconds. Didn't have that problem back 20 years ago, did you, in things like Formula 3? But that's obviously a newer regulation in Motorsport UK racing, and already, not many racing laps into this race, Adam Blair has got a penalty.
To be fair, 20 odd years ago, most circuits wouldn't have wanted to exceed track limits, but the sort of geography of the circuits has changed, hasn't it, with much more appealing runoff areas than you've had before. So that's Fazy going wheel to wheel with the car of, it's the Dayburn Lotus Exige, isn't it? Stuart Dayburn's driving the 44 car, and that's one of the Class A machines, so it's not for class position.
Yeah, I think that's the V6 Cup R that was raced in Europe, a decade or so ago. Going through there is Nicole Drought making her debut. So is there fluid down there still?
There could well be. Let's have a look.
Phil Dryborough.
It is Phil Dryborough, yeah, that's had the moment there. The 62-year-old semi-retired ex-British GT driver, of course, but he's racing all kinds of different things down the years.
You've got 2 drivers that have raced in Aston Martins in British GT in this race, with Andrew Howard, who will drive that Lotus there later on, and Phil Dryborough, who we've just seen, who has been a class winner in the past in the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship. But yeah, we saw Nicole Drought though making her Club Enduro debut. Good to see quite a number of female race drivers in the TEGIWA Club Enduro on this opening weekend of the season. We've got another Seat battle developing. That is between Matthew Wallace and Phil Knibb as they turn their way through the hairpin in 12th and 13th. Here's the Class B leader with a Class A car between them. So that is Matt Fazy ahead of Scott Parkin. Then there's a gap back to Jonathan Packer, who's 3rd. 4th is Chris Freeman. And 5th is the champion from last year, turning through the hairpin there, Luke Handley. Class C, a bit further back, and we watch the Toyota, continues to be led by Graham Kelly. Here is Cam Walton, who runs in 28th position. He's on the best lap of 1 minute 49.5. He's just behind David Goodin's BMW, and just ahead there of Phil Dryber included, trying to recover after his off, but it was between them was the Rose Civic.
There's the GR Yaris again. Looked absolutely fantastic, I think, that number 50 car for Cam Walton, prepared, of course, for Enduro racing by Rogue Motorsport, with Cam also getting involved in some of the preparation and development work on that car.
Lead gap down to 1.5 seconds. David Goodin in the pit, so is Nigel Green saw a pro driver still only allowed to do 50% of the race, or is that regulation no more? But if Nigel Green still gets in now, if that regulation still remains, that is not ideal. I'm sure it was the Goodin BMW that I just saw come down the pit lane.
Pit lane window is open, of course. That's part of the regulations I haven't extracted from my information. That's the 99 car of Joe Williams. That was the car that started from the back. How far up the order had that got? Not into the top 30, I don't think. Last
registered in 41st.
Okay. And that's more than a mandatory routine stop for Joe Williams, I think.
WRT, as it says on the side, not to be confused with Vincent Voss's team. This is the Williams racing team that run this Volkswagen Golf. Lots of Golfs out there this year. A popular car.
I think a few of them ex-VW Cup cars as well, some of them.
And there is a look at the Volkswagen engine. So the lead gap now 1.2 seconds as Cole Swift continues to catch Andy Marston.
Off the circuit though goes, that's the number 101 car of Nick Grove, the BMW 130i from Class B.
That was at McLean's. More penalties for Adam Blair. He's now got a 15-second penalty for exceeding track limits. So not too sure what Ryan Parkin will be making of this in the pit lane. There comes the 1 Series back onto the circuit. Interesting little stat I noticed is we've got 1 Series, 2 Series, 3 Series and 4 Series models of BMW in this race, which is pretty unusual.
It is. I don't know if that's ever happened before, but there we go. So there you've got 2 of the smaller cars in the race coming towards us, the Clio and the Yaris, with the Honda Civic just behind.
There's Phil Dryber recovering. He's in 28th position now. Here are the leaders though, in traffic. Andy Marston versus Cole Swift. Cole Swift, who brakes desperately late into the hairpin. So we've got rear-wheel drive BMW E46 here versus front-wheel drive Seat Leon, and they accelerate up across the line. I think that's the Class C leader they're about to lap, the Graham Kelly BMW, who continues to lead Class C by about 7 seconds over the Hayes and Sabiani BMW, then the Dougal Munro Mazda is third. Cars across the track here. Is that the Gooding car back out? It was a quick stop. Obviously some kind of problem, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably not the driver change stop.
And in front of them there was a challenge for what was 7th position because Sammy Venables has caught William Stacey.
Yes, so that is for 7th, 49 and 70. They were separated by only half a second as the cars came across that line to complete lap 17.
The Exige has pulled away from the Class B cars, which have swapped around because Scott Parkin, has got back ahead of Matt Fazy. So Volkswagen back ahead of Porsche, and Scott Parkin's just set his personal best lap of the race. There's Matthew Hampson. He's lost a lot of positions now, hasn't he? He's down to 21st, so I think that's going to make life difficult for Andy Schulze in the second part. Nicole Drought, who I was talking about earlier, I think her Lotus may have just expired.
It looked very much like it, didn't it? So that's going to be one. Yeah, it is just pulling into the pits, unsurprisingly.
That's the car that's won in the past in the hands of Alan Henderson when the car got to the end. But it looks like it may get no further.
Yeah, the Irish driver out of the race, unfortunately.
Lead gap half a second. We saw Cole Swift had caught Andy Marston. It might be harder to overtake him though. They're 7 seconds ahead of Ryan Parkin. Ben Rushworth's up to 5th now, so he's got back ahead of Dave Griffin and also past William Stacey. So Ben Rushworth going well. He won't have that much experience with lap traffic, I guess, will he? Although he was so fast in Hot Hatch, I guess he lapped people there. But he maybe not in a situation where he needed to push so hard to chase other drivers.
No, possibly not.
Nicole Drought needs to remember to unhook the radio here, otherwise she's going to get strangled.
We don't want that, so it wouldn't be a very good way to end your Club Enduro debut. But yeah, out of the car, I'm afraid. And probably that car out of the race. We'll see if it reappears, but I rather suspect it won't.
Yeah, she's not hanging around in a hurry, is she?
No. So, looks like that. 40 minutes of the race have gone. Andy Marston leading by half a second from Carl Swift. Last time we saw them come across the line.
But the fastest car on the last lap, I know it's all traffic dependent, but that was Dave Griffin in the E90 M3, which we have seen once before. I don't remember it lasting particularly long. So great to see that car out there. Another different shape. There's so many different shapes of car on this grid, and that's what makes it fantastic. And it is fantastic to see this production endurance race series, courtesy of the 750 Motor Club. And I saw in the week lots of people suggesting that they want longer endurance races back, like the Will Hire 24 Hours, which this type of grid does give very much a feel to back in the 1980s. There is Will Stacey. He's pulled away from Sammy Venables now in 7th place, 8th. Then up to 9th in the Audi has come Mark Grice. They obviously had problems in qualifying, which meant they only started 19th. But
was there something going off down towards the hairpin? We'll wait and see. Yes, there is, and it's the Lotus Leon Bidgeway from the top 10 out of the race.
It had lasted 18 laps, which is significantly better than it's done in the past, to be fair.
Oh, and there's a bit of contact there between, I think that was that the 1 Series BMW, and didn't catch which other car that was.
Oh, and oh my word!
There's lots of all of a sudden. Is there some fluid down there as well?
Well, that's where Liam Bidgeway just pulled off.
Yeah, so if cars are getting out of shape down at Melbourne Hairpin, possibly there's some fluid down here. Who knows? Maybe we'll get another safety car. It seems like a good time, therefore, to run down the top 10 positions. First is number 37, Andy Marston. Second is number 1, Carl Swift. Third is number 11, Adam Blair. Fourth is number 100, Steve Laidlaw. Fifth is number 2, Ben Rushworth. Sixth is number 34, Dave Griffin. Seventh is number 49, William Stacey. Eighth is number 70, Sammy Venables. Ninth is number 27, Mark Grice. 10th is number 43, Steve Cheatham. We're seeing the 101 car going slowly.
That's the car
that was the car that was involved in a bit of contact, and yeah, there's certainly some damage there. But it's also been off the road earlier, hasn't it? The 101 car of Nick Grove as well. Class B is being led by number 12, Scott Parkin, from number 13, Steve Hewson, and number 5, Jonathan Packett. And Class C, Josh, can you see who's leading Class C at the moment?
That would be 188, Graham Kelly, by about 8 seconds from 66, which was started by Jonathan Hayes, and third is number 3, John Munro.
A couple of cars in the penalty area. 179 has gone back out again. I don't think that it was serving a penalty though, and the 22 car is just serving a stop-go penalty, and that is Luke Browse and Paul Browse. Luke Browse in the car at the moment, but the 101 car looks to be out of the race.
Yeah, Nick Groove started, so Carlo Turner there isn't going to get a race. I think it looked like there was some broken front left corner on that car. Change for the lead, by the way. Cole Swift has got ahead of Andy Marston. So the Seat goes back to the front. He didn't lead for about 10 laps or so after that off, but he's quickly got back to the front of the field. They're 10 seconds now ahead of Adam Blair, who has been caught by Steve Laidlaw.
So if Matt Suckling hopefully is somewhere down there, he can hopefully go and find our cameraman down there, Adam, in the pit lane, and we'll get those linked up together again, and we'll see if Matt can maybe see if we can start to get some interviews, because we'll be getting driver change, I think, at any moment, especially if we do get a safety car as well. I suspect some drivers, especially the solo drivers here, will be rolling the dice and waiting for a safety car, won't they, Josh, in this one?
Yeah, at this point, you obviously don't need fuel, but for some cars, they may need fuel earlier than others. There's the Audi, Mark Rice, front Civic Cup racer in the past. He's been doing this endurance series though for a while now. He is up to 9th and 6 seconds behind Sammy Venables in the BMW M4, and he's now 10 seconds clear of Steve Cheatham. Lots of tyre spill down there from the other end of the circuit. The Williams Motor Company Audi RS3 then turns its way down towards the Melbourne Loop. Leaders across the line, by the way. They're still together. Andy Marston is still with Cole Swift by just a few tenths of a second, and then 10 seconds later we have the battle for third across the line between Adam Blair and David Griffin, and then a fifth place battle across the line just a couple of seconds later between Steve Laidlaw and Ben Rushworth. So the top three, or the top six, are running in three pairs out on the racetrack at the minute. Then Will Stacey is solo in 7th, as is Sammy Venables. Then Venables hasn't come through, I don't think. So Mark Wright is up to 8th.
There's Venables in the background, I think.
So the M4 has had a problemed lap. So Cheatham is now 9th. Up into the top 10 has come Phil Knibb, who's lapping quickly in his Seat Leon now. And down to 11th, therefore, has gone Sammy Venables. Renault Megane out there. First time we've seen one of those in Club Enduro. That's Matt Dennis, who starts the car that he shares with Graham Price in Class B.
Yeah, it's a new build for this year by Pure Truck Racing, Matt Dennis's team. And his wife, Sarah, also racing in the Clios that's being shared with James Miller.
Here are the leaders into the hairpin. Cole Swift, they're diving down the inside of a Mini Cooper. The car driven by Neville Jones, and chasing him still is Andy Marston. Then we wait for the battle for third. Here they come. That is Adam Blair's Audi TT, just ahead of David Griffin. Then behind them is the battle for fifth between Steve Laidlaw and Ben Rushworth. And there's lots of Class B battling that they've just lapped as they turn their way through the hairpin. So we've got a little look there at the three battles up front, but it looked to me like Cole Swift was just starting to gap Andy Marston now. After 22 laps, they cross the line. 1.2 seconds is the gap that separates them.
Certainly is. 45 minutes gone, 46 minutes nearly.
Ben Rushworth looking racy here, isn't he, on the back of Steve Laidlaw?
Yeah, absolutely. Those two just going into Redgate now. There's Will Stacey going through as well.
He's not far behind them, is he?
No, not too far. About 4 seconds behind that battle, 4 or 5 seconds, something like that. Not too much between them at all. Let's watch this view of the start and finish straight, the Whitcroft Straight here at Donington Park.
This is battle for 9th, Steve Cheatham versus Phil Knibb. So a lot of cars have got out there in pairs, haven't they, having battles? And chasing them both is Sammy Venables, going quicker. Now he's not in problems. Here comes the Class B leader. That is now Matt Fazy again. And he's pulling away from Scott Parkin. Between them, from pretty much the back of the grid, is the George Haler Seat Leon that was on the podium here a year ago.
That's right.
Coming through. So they got into the top 15 from way back on the grid.
Yeah, it was pretty much the penultimate row of the grid, I think, that that car started. So problems in qualifying, of course. Yeah, it was row 26 of the grid. Oh, and that's problems as well. That's for the 99 car. Yeah, that is the car that started at the back. That's Joe Williams, the WRT team for the 33-year-old mechanic, starting his first season of racing. Driver from Leominster.
He's trying to find a safe place to park, which is always very appreciated. But we can now ride on board with the Class B leader. This is Matt Fazy in the car that Steve Hewson won the final round of last season in the class. They are 14th overall and head Scott Parkin by about 3 seconds. Parkin has lapped quicker during the course of the race than Fazy, but Fazy doing a good job here to be ahead. I don't think we've seen much of Matt Fazy over the last few years, have we, since he won the class championship?
Yeah, it was 2018 he won the title, the class title, the same year as Steve Hewson won it overall, sharing with Matt Noster, and of course Hewson and Fazy teaming up now this season for this Class B campaign in the Porsche Cayman.
The only races Matt Fazy's done in the last 3 years were at Cadwell Park, where he won twice in the Lotus Elise Trophy, so that was good for him. And now he is out with Steve Hewson in this Porsche, although it does look on this lap Scott Parkin is a bit closer again, but there is that Class A Seat between them, and Scott Parkin was at 1.2 seconds quicker than Fazy on that lap, so the gap is reduced.
Josh, go for an update on the position of car number 3, which is the TWP traction branded MX-5 for John Munro, who started that car with Nick Dougal. In fact, we can see it on our screen now. There it is. But where is it in track position, Josh?
It's third in Class C still, but about 20 seconds behind class leader Graham Kelly. But John Munro is 35th overall, but third, more importantly, within the class. But the race leaders there we saw for a moment were absolutely together across the line. But let's take a look at that John Munro car. We'll come back to him in a moment because the lead battle is on, because Andy Marston has closed in on Cole Swift. Now, could Cole Swift have to push so hard to get back up? Has he damaged his front tyres? Because, of course, on that Seat, all the work needed to be done by the front tyres on that Seat. We'll come back to the lead battle in a moment. You just see John Munro go through, and we've had a change for third place. Dave Griffin in that E90 M3 didn't start so quickly. He's moving up the order. He's got into third ahead of Adam Blair. So some good battles out on the circuit, including across the line there, involving Michael Downey's Porsche Boxster and the Ginetta G40, which was started, I'm not sure who by, Matthew Tidmarsh, Chris Webster car there was started by Matthew Tidmarsh. So they were involved in a battle. And Sammy Venables is slower in the BMW M4, the Elite Motorworks car. In the background, the two Class B leaders are together and they touch. I think there was contact there between the two Class B leaders out of the hairpin, but involved in all of that phase, they're still touching, and they are very close to making contact into Redgate Corner. The two Class B leaders, Scott Parkin and Matt Fazy. We'll follow up on that in a moment, but first let's hear from Matt Suckling, who's down in the pits.
Yeah, thanks very much, Josh. Down here with Nick Grove, who's just stepped out of the 101 BMW. Nick, it looked like there was a bit of damage on the car and it hasn't gone your way, unfortunately. What's the matter?
No, we've had a fairly interesting start to the race. Obviously, a couple of safety cars. Was just starting to get back into the rhythm. Locked up at the bottom of McLean's. Went through the gravel. Treated it as a drive-through. Managed to get all the way out the other side. Again, just managed to get settled back down again. We got some oil temperature warnings, and as we were coming into the Melbourne Loop, I think it was a Lotus straight into the side of us as I turned in, and then at that point the steering was more than usually wonky and really difficult to get a gear. So it seemed okay when we got back and restarted the engine and stuff. So Carlo just took it out, but I think he just turned left at the end of the pit lane. So I think we're probably done.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of damage on the right-hand side of the car, wasn't there? And
a very pleasing crunch as I opened the door. So a bit of fiberglass repair, but it's first race of the season, so we'll be back.
Yeah, so Carlo's got away now. I want to let you get away and go and see if he's come back anywhere, but if you can get it back out, you probably will.
If we can bend it back into shape, we'll certainly have another go. It's still quite early in the race, so we'll see what we can do.
Nick, thanks very much for your time.
Cheers.
There we go, Nick Grove with the 101 BMW with some problems. Carlo was just sent back out, but as he said, turned left at the end of the pit lane with some problems. So that one for now is with a retirement.
Thanks, Matt. And that's a great shame for Nick Grove and Carlo Turner. Tractor has been busy mowing the car park, ready for next weekend, and the grass banks here at Donington Park. But that's the touring cars here next week. But we've got touring cars of a sort here with the TCR cars in this TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship race.
There's the third place car, Dave Griffin, who's been moving through the order in the E90 M3. He's ahead of Steve Laidlaw and Ben Rushworth's touring cars there. Still half a second, the gap up front, by the way, between Cole Swift and between Andy Marston. Saw there Adam Blair, who had a slow last lap and has dropped to 7th, so I thought he may have come into the pit, so that's not the case. So
yeah, of course he's got those 15 seconds worth of penalties to add to his time as well. I think it's a 5 and a 10 making 15 rather than a 5 and a 15 from what I gather.
But yeah, he's dropped positions on the road as well. He lost third to Dave Griffin, and now he's lost 3 more positions with presumably an error. There's Rob Fennick heading through in his Class B Lotus in the car that he shares with Andrew Howard.
Up to the well, look, there is the 71 car, I think that was, going through shot. Actually the 70 car, wasn't it? That's the correction. Yeah, it was the 70 car of Venables going through, I think.
Yeah, but the car's still going, isn't it? Because that had the problem a little while ago. I thought it was coming to a halt just before we spoke to Matt. And of course, at the back point as well, the two Class B drivers were trying to take each other out, weren't they?
What's the result of all of that?
Scott Parkin is now ahead of Matt Fazy. But
a couple of seconds between them, isn't there?
There was some non-ideal things happening, I think, between those two. Here are the two leaders. Andy Marston sideways out of the Goddard hairpin, right on terms with Cole Swift, then the race leader, as they come down toward Redgate. But Marston is keeping with Swift, and these are both solo drivers now, we believe. So that race battle could last the whole distance. Then here comes Griffin. He's in third. The team, the Lodge Porsches have got themselves together, haven't they? Steve Cheatham laps Colin Gillespie. Cheatham is ninth, and he's keeping Phil Nibb there at bay as they head their way down in towards the Melbourne Loop. They're 9th and 10th now in this race, the Porsche and the Seat.
Yeah, Gillespie in the Class B Porsche Cayman there, whereas the 43 car of Steve Cheatham is a Class A Boxster. There's that 70 car of Sammy Venables, which has had a bit of a mixed race so far, it's fair to say. Running at the moment in 14th position. Is that still on the lead lap, or is it now a lap down?
It should still be on the lead lap,
I think. Yeah, I think you're right. It's the number 70 car, and it's Steve Hutchinson, Sammy Venables' teammate, that lists Donington Park as his favourite circuit. He's not yet had the chance to drive on it in this particular race. 58-year-old surface architect in that Elite Works prepared M4.
A couple of Lotus have got themselves together there, down through the Craner curves, but the leaders exit the hairpin, where I think they are lapping Reese Lysett, who is back out on track, but not racing still, I don't think.
No, still with those gearbox issues, I suggest, which is a great shame for young Reese.
Oh, and it's a Class C leader, is it not? That is Graham Kelly that's come to a stop on the exit of the Melbourne hairpin.
That's 3.25i for Graham Kelly, and that's looking like he's going to need some help to get back into the race. Another retirement, by the way, I think it's been 22. The Luke Browse and Paul Browse car, but been told that's been a retirement from the race as well. So we have lost a few cars during the course of this race so far, or cars which have had sort of long pit stops and got back out again. Looks like Graham Kelly is getting out of the car, or preparing to get out of the car, which I wouldn't be advising given his position.
Yeah, so you know what that might mean.
Yeah,
a difficult time for pit stops.
Yeah,
to get busy.
You're sort of getting to sort of prime pit stop time, isn't it? I think Graham should probably be staying in his car.
So what that means is Jonathan Hayes now leads Class C from John Munro, who we were talking about earlier. But Munro, 20 seconds behind Hayes, and third, that promotes Rory Baptiste.
Right, Kelly's managed to get his car a few inches further off the road. Still not off the road though, unfortunately, so we'll see what happens to this. The marshal has now arrived and is suggesting to Graham that if he can, he should pull the car into the old pit lane entrance.
Has something happened? Maybe not. I was wondering if something had happened to Andy Marston there, but I think he's okay. Yeah, he's still actually right with Cole Swift, isn't he? So yeah, no problems, which is good news for the E46 M3 driver that heads across the line.
Black flag being shown to someone, which is probably making them aware of a pit stop penalty that they need to serve. We can't see the numbers from here, being shown to the drivers though. Let me just check my source of information, see what I can find out, if anything.
Badworth fourth comes out the hairpin, still Steve Laidlaw ahead of Ben Rushworth. Rushworth not quite as close to Laidlaw as he once was.
He's got a bit further away. Yes, he's onto the old pit lane entrance now, is Graham Kelly, but that car is still not in an ideal position, but it's in a slightly less bad position than it was, and Graham is now at least able to get out of the car.
Leaders exit McLean's in traffic, as they pretty much constantly are now, and turn their way through Coppice Corner Randy Martin is doing a great job here, I'd suggest, Ian, keeping with Cole Swift throughout this first part of the race, especially considering how Cole Swift caught him after going off.
Yeah, the rate at which Cole Swift caught him, you'd think he'd then be able to pull away, but that's not been the case at all. That's the 100 car, the Steve Laidlaw car. That's in 4th position, just putting a lap on the
Class C leader.
Class C, yeah, the new Class C leader. Therefore, in what position overall is that?
31st.
31st. Yeah, it's moved on to your screen now, hasn't it? The Jonathan Hayes, Paul Sabiani car, the Canet racing car.
So yeah, so they're going well. There's a Class B leader, Scott Parkin, and where is Matt Fazy? About 5 seconds behind now. And they're soon going to be lapped by the Class A leaders because they're turning their way across the line to complete 30 laps of this race. I can see there's yellow flags at Coppice in the background.
Yes, there are.
I don't think we've seen the reason for that.
So that's probably something that's that's stopped on the straight. Ah, there we are.
Will Stacey.
It is Will Stacey. Now he was inside the top 10, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's 6th, I think. Before that car has come to a halt in the last moments.
But Marshall and the driver having to get that car to a position of safety. So number 49 is the latest retirement. There's been a few retirements so far then, Josh. The Elise are now out of the race.
Yeah, because this endurance racing isn't just about being fast and consistent, it's also about being reliable and having good pit strategy, and pit stops begin.
Darren Anderson is handing over there to Roy Chappell. Darren, the 48-year-old Porsche specialist, so obviously he's racing a BMW. Married a Mark 1 Cortina in the past, but only started racing in 2019. That car actually was built to go rallying, but they're actually running it in Club Enduro on the circuit, so perhaps a car that would go better in the wet, maybe. And where are they running that 190 car? It's in 37th position and 2nd, 3rd, 4th, thinking Class C.
So that's quite good. The Wallaces are heading exit stage left, or stage right if you're watching the screens, into the pit lane. So Matthew Wallace will hand over to his brother Simon, one of the Area Motorsport prepared cars. There's a few garages of Area Motorsport run vehicles here at the far end of the pit lane. And that is where Matt Wallace is, the first of those stoppers.
Yep, down there in the pit lane you can see they're stopping at a 45-degree angle to avoid too much congestion when drivers are making the stops. They all have to pull in at 45 degrees and then be pushed back out into the race. Matthew Wallace getting out of the car. And Simon will get in. Car being refueled at the moment.
He saw that he had to get out, shut the door before the fueling could begin, and then we have the fuel going in, and then somebody will be ready with a fire extinguisher. Well, hopefully it won't be needed, but just in case. There is Rob Baker. He certainly doesn't look like he's going to be driving the car, so he's on. Perhaps he's running so many cars, he thought driving the car as well is not really feasible, so he's on team boss duties.
Yeah, Area Motorsport boss there. That is one of the Area Motorsport cars, the number 6 of the Wallace brothers. Started there racing in MR2s. For a decade ago now, I should think. They raced together in MR2s, then they raced in Civics together for a while, didn't they, as well?
That's right. So their pit stop, don't have to rush them. That's the whole point of the minimum pit stop time. There's Sammy Venables seemingly back up to speed, although now he is 15th in the race. And he turns his way down towards the Melbourne Loop. Into the top 10 now has come George Haler in that car that's started from the back. Marshall's still working to move the BMW down there, by the way.
Yeah, that's on the old Grand Prix pit entrance, as we're watching on screen, the number 70 Elite Works car go through. And who's that into the pits?
That's the Rob Fenwick Lotus.
The Rob Fenwick Lotus, isn't it, that's going in?
So Andrew Howard should be making his 750 Motor Club debut here.
I'm looking a bit blank because I don't know the answer to that question. I suspect it probably is.
So I think he just raced minis, didn't he, before he went GT racing?
Yeah.
This is the Reese Lycett car, isn't it?
Yeah, so
Well, you'd think wouldn't need fuel at this stage.
we might as well. It's going to be Steve Brockington that will get into the car, the 46-year-old program manager in his first season of racing. Done some tarmac and then gravel rallying, Steve.
Reese Lycett did do 16 laps, actually. Not very quickly, it has to be said.
The leaders have done 32, to put that in context.
Yeah, so he did. Does need perhaps some fuel, not as much as he probably would have hoped. See Matt Suckling watching on as Area Motorsport do their pit stop. Getting quite busy down there now, so Matt's going to have plenty of drivers to chat to as we head into the second part of this race.
Yep, so getting ready to, as soon as that 3-minute countdown has been completed, to push the car back out into the race. There we are, 180 seconds up. And Simon is going to go back out into the race for the remaining hour and 1 minute. So they've split that pretty evenly between the two drivers, haven't they?
That's right, yeah. Lead gap's now 2.5 seconds, so Andy Marston is just starting to fall away. There's third place, Dave Griffin, who's 20 seconds behind, but he's really pulled away from Steve Laidlaw and Ben Rushworth, who are together as they turn their way into the hairpin. Ben Rushworth can't go through. Ben Rushworth half a minute behind Cole Swift here, which I can't imagine would be in Ben's norm.
No, but I mean, Cole Swift's been racing these cars for a long while now, and it's Ben's first time out. And Ben, very experienced, former Metro champion, of course, and Hot Hat champion as well in the Honda that he raced to such great effect. Yeah, he's done bits and pieces of other racing as well, hasn't he? By invitation primarily.
Yes, he raced in historics thanks to Paul Hugo, who's I think one of his sponsors. He raced a Chevron B8 primarily as his historic exploits a few decades ago, and impressed in that. I think the historic racing peeps were pretty impressed with Ben's debut a few seasons ago. Meanwhile, the Audi is pitting.
What's that, the Adam Blair car?
No, the Mark Grice, the
yes,
RS3.
Yes, it is, beg your pardon, yeah.
Which came out of 7th. Good stint there for Mark Grice. He overtook a lot of cars, and the car in 8th is also in. That's Phil Nibbs' Sayat Leon. And we saw Matt hanging around in the pit lane, and now he's caught up with a driver.
Yeah, down here in the pit lane with the number 6 machine, Matt Wallace, who's just jumped out of the car. Matt, that looked like a hard stint, but a good one.
It was really hard. I felt like the first 20 minutes or so was awesome. The car felt really good and everything. And then that last sort of 30, 40 minutes, I think it's the same for everyone, but the tyres were just really going off and I was really struggling. So we just, even though there was no safety car, we decided to make the move and come in at the right time. So.
And you were plagued, weren't you, in that early stint by a couple of safety cars? How did that kind of work for you?
It worked all right, actually, because when the safety car came out, I had a couple of people right on my bum. And then by the time the safety car came in, I'd managed to pull a bit of a gap, which is always handy. So, yeah, it was actually okay for us.
You've now handed over to your brother. What are you kind of expecting from the day here?
Well, hopefully he can do a little bit better than me, but we'll see. I've just got no idea. Yesterday in testing, we were both around the same time, so hopefully he can just go out there and keep the car on the track till the end.
It's hard work today. It's not that warm, but it's a long circuit. It's a hard circuit.
Yeah, it's a very hard circuit. I mean, if I was doing it in another 10 degrees of weather on top of this, it'd be really hard work. So the cars get very, very hot inside. So as you can see, I'm, so it's like a full workout.
Yeah, but that's now you done for the day?
It's hopefully done for the day, unless Simon decides to come in for an unexpected reason.
Well, good stuff, Matt. Well done.
Cheers. Thanks very much. Cheers.
There we go. Matt Wallace down here in the pit lane. Now out the number 6 car, but brother in it, ready to go to the end of the race.
Thanks, Matt. So good to hear there from with another Matt, with Matt Wallace down in the pit lane. There's Luke Handley, the reigning Class B champion. He's currently in 5th. There's Ben Rushworth, and he has not got Steve Laidlaw directly ahead of him now because he's a couple of seconds behind. There's now Andrew Howard out in the Lotus Elite, so we'll see what Andrew Howard can do. I don't know when the last time he didn't race an Aston Martin was, so
not sure on that.
Good to see him out here. A late entry. There's Sarah Dennis and James Millar's Renault Clio, who we saw earlier on, turning their way through McLean's corner into the second half, as we've been saying, of this race now.
A couple of cars are going to have to start again. A couple of cars are going to have to serve some stop-go penalties. 27, which is the car that came into the pits a moment ago, the Mark Weiss Woolbeach Audi RS3 TCR car. They've got 2 1-minute stop-go penalties to serve, apparently. And 191 car, which is that of Oliver Owen, he's got 1 stop-go penalty to serve.
Okay, that's we're kind of ruined their races. 42 there going through is a new Lotus Elise in the series, driven by Paul Clark and Tom Gladys. Good to see some new names out there in the 2022 season. Here are the Class B leaders. It's Matt Fazy that we ride on board with. It's the diesel Golf up ahead of Scott Parkin in the Dark Side Developments car that runs wide, just about stays on the circuit. So that's all happening in front of Matt Fazy then, who turns his way down towards the S's, brakes and down the gears on the Flappy Paddo box there, gets a bit sideways and then accelerates back off after the Class B leader. They're now, as they haven't pitted, in 9th and 10th overall and 15 seconds ahead of Jonathan Packer, and they're about to lap that Toyota Yaris that we've enjoyed seeing out there in this race.
Absolutely right. You mentioned Tom Gladys being involved in this race. He's another driver that's raced at a high level, up to and including FIA Formula 2 Championship in between 2009 and 2011.
You think you recognise these names, but can't remember where from, so thanks for that info. So great to see him back out racing here in that Class A Lotus Elise with Paul Clark, who started the car. So across the line then comes a load of cars, which includes that Janetta G40 of Matthew Tidmarsh, that's 19th overall now.
Yeah, Matthew Tidmarsh showing the car with the car's owner, Chris Webster, in the Flying Tangerine racing. It's less of a Tangerine, though, than it was when they raced the MX-5, which I think is now available as a hire car. 13. Ooh, very crossed up from Matt Fazy there as he went through McLean's. He's kept it pointing in the right direction there as they come up to Coppice.
Yes, and Scott Parkin therefore trying to get away, but he's got caught up in a bit of traffic out of Coppice, and that has slowed the Golf up somewhat. So one TWP car was in trouble, now the other one has a drama.
But it's good news for our friends watching who have branded the car with the traction livery, because it's getting a bit of exposure in the pit lane. That's the number 3 car, John Munro, Nick Dougal. So if that car does go back out again, Nick Dougal, I'm sure, will be aboard it. But there's some work being done on the left rear corner on that car as it's sitting in the pit lane.
Ben Rushworth has not come through. Does that mean he's in the pits? I wonder. As the leaders come through, 4 seconds apart now, Cole Swift to Andy Marston. David Goodin is back in, so perhaps Nigel Greenstall will get a run now, but that car's way down out of contention, I should think. So with Rushworth not come through, meaning 5th place is Steve Cheatham, 6th place is now George Haler. And then the Class B leaders up next with Scott Parkin with this reduced margin again over Matt Fazy. There, I think that's George Haler, is it just going through?
Yeah, it might well have been actually.
Here are the one of the Class B contenders. This is back on board with Matt Fazy, who was entertaining through McLean's a lap ago. This time he gets understeer, then oversteer later on. There's one of the area Sayers, that's the now Simon Wallace driven car, isn't it? That is rather getting on in his way through the corners.
Yeah, and Fazy, although he's in a Class B car, gets ahead of it through Coppice and down the straights, but the TCR car is level pegging with it more or less down the straight. I don't know, he's going to pull him behind, I think. I don't know if that right indicator's going for a reason, but it kind of indicated he was going to pull him behind. He's not got the pace, has he, Simon Wallace, coming off the corner there? So I think Simon Wallace possibly in trouble in that Area Motorsport car. But here are the 2 Class B front runners together now then. Scott Parkin and Matt Fazy. Yeah, definitely an ups, because he's lost a bit of ground there. Heading up towards Goddard, the hairpin.
To be fair, I thought that was going to be worse than what it ended up being. thought we were going to see
Well,
some...
I thought the same at McLean's a couple of laps ago. But they're coming out, the two Class B leaders, nose to tail, and in, what are they, 7th and 8th overall now, with the pit stop sort of in mid-flow.
In the background, we saw Will Beach come in the Audi to serve one of those penalties that we heard about a moment ago. So on to Hollywood and down the Craner curve for these Class B leaders. Up over the curve through the left-handed element there. So that battle continues to go on. They're now 15 seconds ahead of Jonathan Packer, who's third. How's McLean's going to go this time for Matt Fazy? Well, he turns in and accelerates up the corner with no drama.
Yeah, it's different every lap, isn't it, with Matt Fazy at McLean's? Can't tell from one lap to the next what's going to happen. So that's the Hayes and Subiani BMW head. I think it's now Subiani aboard, isn't it? In that car.
Yeah, looks like they've stopped. There's the Mini out there, the Cooper S, which was the car shared between Neville Jones and Matthew George. It's another brand on track. The Audi TT is pitted now. Adam Blair.
So what was that from? 6th, was it, in the end?
Where's it gone? Oh, so perhaps it's been in already because it's down to 23rd. So
yeah, it's probably already been in and made it stop.
What's Cole Swift up to here? So is Andy Schulze now in the 46 M3? I'd imagine.
I suspect he probably is if he's giving Carl Swift a race.
Here the Class B leaders still going at it.
They are. Different lines taken through the Goddard hairpin that time. And out of it they come along the Wheatcroft straight towards Redgate Corner. It is Parkin still ahead, but is that going to be the case when they get to Redgate? There's a faster Class A car threading its way between them as well, which gets out of shape. That's Dave Griffin. And now the 12 car, the Parkin Golf, tries to go back from the inside but can't live with the BMW as it gets the power on down through the Craner curves. So that car of the BMW, where is that running?
Third.
He's running third, so he's a lap ahead now.
That's right, yeah, Dave Griffin's having a good run. He's not losing any time to the two leaders. He's still only 20 seconds behind. Matt, though, is continuing his work downstairs in the pit lane, and let's see who he's caught up with now.
Yeah, just down here with Ben Rushworth, who's just jumped out the number 2 set. Ben, nice to see you in something a little bit different this year. How was that for you in the first stint?
Baptism of fire, that was absolutely mental. I've only sweat in a car twice like that before, and once I wasn't driving. So yeah, it was good.
A quick car, I imagine.
Yeah, it's such a composed car, and it's really different to jump into that compared to what took a little while to get used to it. Obviously, start the race, as busy it is, trying to keep up with people, it's mayhem out there. So I've never done an enduro, so it's another thing altogether.
Enjoying it though?
Yeah, it was brilliant. Right towards the end, it's settling down. Couldn't really keep up with the front running guys. Got not held up, but me and the guy in front, I had strengths and he had strengths, and they sort of averaged out a bit. And then yeah, just trying to keep it on the track, keep it tidy, and not push too hard, because they do go off. Almost like they go off, and yeah, they go off.
I saw you talking to the team there about tyres. Anything wrong with them, or just checking them over?
Right when they called me in to pit, I was going into the chicane alongside a BMW, and I ran a bit wide, and the sausage curbs yeah, took me out. But luckily it was on the last lap before they called me in a pit, so I just shouted to get some tyres out.
Now James into the car, of course. What do you think he can bring it home in terms of a result?
A, I don't even know where we are. And B, I just hope we keep it on and keep the same position. And maybe there's a bit of attrition at the front. It's the first race we've both done, so if we can just keep it on there on the track, it'd be awesome to finish.
Great job so far.
Cheers, mate.
There we go, Ben Rushworth then, as we said, out the number 2 car. Not too sure where he is, but I'm sure two people who do know where he is, Ian and Josh.
He's showing Matt in 18th position at the moment, having made that stop, so he'll climb back up, or James will, as some of the cars ahead of him that haven't stopped will make their pit stops. A bit of news from that Class B battle is that 13 car of Matt Fazy, which has been exuberantly driven, has picked up a 5-second penalty for exceeding track limits now, so that rather blunts the battle that he was having with Scott Parker, and they're 1.2 seconds apart on the road, but make that 6.2 seconds on corrected times.
Having a look at that Renault Megane that you were talking about earlier, that was been newly built ready for this championship season. There's the the other traction car done by TWP that we saw just for a moment, the Reese Lysick driven car earlier. 14 going through there is Christopher Freeman's Volkswagen Golf, who is battling towards the front of the Class B cars. There's Jonathan Packer, who's third in that class, 15 seconds behind the two leaders. And there's the Blair and Parkin TT. And Adam Blair out of the car. It looks like Ryan Parkin is in it, but we know this is a second pit stop, which is not part of the plan in the Club Enduro Championship, not at this round anyway.
No, absolutely not. So we'll get the car back out into the race, the Dark Side Developments car. The car originally built by Slide Sports for the VW Cup. And out it rumbles into the pit lane with 46 minutes of the race remaining. Bit of dust on the circuit there, with the cars having gone off in earlier races. That's but Coppice Corner. Here we've got two Seats going wheel to wheel. One is the Haler car and one is the race leading car of Carl Swiftall. The Haler car is a lap behind, isn't it?
Yes, it's about to go a lap behind anyway. So George Haler's trying quite hard to stay on the lead lap just in case. Yeah. Because that's always an important factor in these type of races. Andy Schulze has now dropped behind Cole Swift. Cole Swift seemed to be quite happy to run very much wheel to wheel a moment ago, didn't he, with George Haler? He's got a 5-second lead. So he doesn't want to get held up here too much.
Well, he does now put a lap on with a 187 Haler car. I wonder if that's going to head for the pits. No, it's Jonathan Beeson that will drive the second stint in that particular car, and they'll need to make that stop in the next 30 minutes because the pit lane closes with 15 minutes of the race left to go.
And yeah, we did actually lose a couple of seconds on that lap, Cole Swift. That's why he was keen to get through, because Andy Marston closed him in as he was getting stuck in traffic. And now he finds that Tom Gladys now driven Lotus, and he goes right round the outside through the Craner curves, which look pretty spectacular. And then he turns the car over the inside of the old hairpin. Not sure if the sort of the trim on the side there is a little bit loose after its off-track excursion earlier. That's sort
possibly.
But I don't think that's really going to cause too much of an issue for Cole Swift, who turns a little bit of oversteer there maybe into McLean's as he lapped a Honda Civic. Yeah, there's definitely oversteer, isn't there, in that Seat? And whether they will decide to change tyres in the pit stop to Area Motorsport or not. So they turn their way down to the S's. There's not many races which Cole Swift has not won in recent years of the Club Enduro Championship. They lost out on one victory at Silverstone last year when they had a brake issue, and they lost out on one race in 2020 when Alan Henderson beat them at Alton Park. But otherwise, Cole Swift has won every race in the recent years of the Club Enduro season.
Yeah, usually sharing with Rob Baker though, more often than not. Usually Carl's probably done the lion's share of the racing, hasn't he, I would think. It's fair to say, but going solo here. 23 car, the Clio, you can see just heading down the hill. That's Sarah Dennis, who's now out in the race, ex-Stock Catch racer. She started racing 20 odd years ago, I think, but had a long break from racing, but has come back to it now.
Steve Cheatham is pitting
from
6th place. Former champion.
It's the box dirt on the right hand side of screen, heading down the pit lane.
There's Andrew Howard going through in his Lotus. He's 27th in overall. He's in a Class B car. He's a little bit slower than the front runners. There is Andy Marston trying to squeeze past a slower car. How did that work out for him? Not particularly well, but he's still on the road. That's the more important thing. Now he gets past the Rory Baptiste and Tim Hartland, E46. And he's also now lapped George Haler, hasn't he? The Seat that's a lap down.
Tim Hartland, I think, was one of, if not the only driver last year to collect awards in 2 different championships, because he collected the award for being one of the best golfs as well in the Hot Hatch Championship last year. Are you looking at what I'm looking at, which is that grass in the sort of air intake there on the #1 car?
It looks that way, doesn't it? We've seen a lot of dust kicked up because the old hairpin at Coppice. There's a lot of inside of the road being used by pretty much everybody. So I guess if you're close behind someone where that happens, that's possible. And Is that the case, or is it just a bit deceptive?
It's hard to tell, isn't it? Either way, I'm sure the team will try and get that cleared out at the pit stop, which can't be too far away now, you wouldn't have thought. I was wondering if they're rolling the dice for a safety car here and going to try and coincide the stop with that. So Swift has gone through, and now the second place car has gone through of Andy Marsh. The gap's gone out by another 2 seconds nearly on that lap. So 1:42.09 for Swift, 1:43.95 for Andy Marston. That's 2 or 3 seconds off what they've been capable of in the early part of the races.
Class B leader is in, I think. That's Scott Parkin. He's got out of the car while the car is being refueled. Trying to be cooled down as well. You can see the big blower there at the front. So fuel is going in.
Yeah, of course, that's Ryan's twin. Ryan now out in the number 11 car. This is another Slide Sports built car, the Golf. And Scott, like his brother, because they are twins, 32 years of age. And he's the owner of Darkside Developments. He's been racing since 2019.
So I guess this will be a good time for the team to inform him of that penalty for the car he's battling with.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The Houston and Fazy car. We've got also, most of these cars will have team radios as well, so that information should be forthcoming. So top 2 yet to pit. I'm kind of surprised that Lotus is continuing around with a gearbox problem, because it's not very nice to be out there, is it? So much lower than everybody else.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to know what it achieves in some sense, other than some more experience, I guess, for the drivers, but it's not necessarily the most pleasant experience, I would have thought.
How was Nigel Greensall getting on? Oh, it's 5 seconds off the pace. Is the answer to that. In the E36 M3. He was also racing here at the Masters Historic meeting.
Now what's behind this cloud of dust? I suspect by the time it clears, it'll be nothing. Well, that's at Coppice. Yeah, they can't see anything there now. No sign of the car, but someone's been off the road at Coppice.
Nigel Greensall, such an experienced driver. Actually, I'm not. Is that Greensall in the car? I'm kind of not convinced, but if he has got in the car or not.
Yeah, very experienced. Used to race Star of Mallory from the Ford 1600. I remember him racing in this sort of first ever sort of radical Enduro 2-hour race when that was at Mallory Park as well. He's raced in Boss Formula, holds lap record at Castle Combe, or did, the outright record.
On the old track.
Yeah, on the old track.
That car's running, by the way, in the 27th position, but isn't one of the quickest cars in the race at this point.
No, but it's good to be in the race at all, because David and Nigel were only 3rd reserve, so they've managed to get in the race with a little bit of attrition elsewhere. 1 or 2 cars pulling out before the weekend.
Yeah, David Goodin also races Jaguar E-types with, or a Jaguar E-type with Nigel, so that's where their relationship started. Of course, Nigel is also a driver coach, and he's keeping up with the Audi RS3 here, which has had those penalties, so it's dropped down to 22nd. Andrew Howard here, just being lapped. So he turns his way into the S's. Andrew Howard, a massively experienced driver nowadays. He's raced at Le Mans a number of times. It's been strange in recent years to not see him race with Johnny Adam, who he raced with for such a long time. Not too sure actually what Andrew's plans are this year, because he's not racing in British GT, he's not racing in European Le Mans Series, so why not come into Club Enduro for your next step up?
Exactly, it's the next development, I think. It's hugely competitive, fantastic value for money endurance racing, great spectacle, nice variety of cars. Why would you want to be anywhere else? I've just seen the 44 car, it's the 44 Stuart, well, David Trigg now car, I suspect. Has that pitted? Yeah, I think it has, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's the Exige V6 Cup R.
Yeah.
That would have raced in the European Lotus Series.
Of course, we used to see Dayburn and Trigg in TVR Tuscan, didn't we, in various races.
It is a tiny car compared to the Audi behind of Will Beach now, who runs Williams Motor Company, which is on the side of the car. It's a great looking car, that Audi RS3. That's the type of car Gordon Shedden raced in the World Touring Car Championship, which I don't think was Gordon's favourite times. So he's come back to the British Touring Car Championship. He'll be racing here next weekend at Donington Park. There's 98. That is the Class C BMW of Rory Baptiste and Tim Hartland. And who leads Class C now? Well, I think everyone has pitted, and it's gone back the way of Hayes and Sabiani, and they are 40 seconds ahead of the Baptiste Hartland car we see all there. And then into third position has come the Connell and Nolan MX-5. I think they're only in their second season of racing and going well. They're in third place in the 97 car.
That's right, Dave Connell and Dave Nolan. Yeah, 33 and 32 years of respectively, both started racing in 2021. And this was a car that's been in the Connell family for 10 years, but converted to racing only a couple of years ago.
I saw Sam McKee wishing them luck, who we've seen out in 750 Motor Club races in the past. Here is Tom Gladys sharing with Paul Clark in the Lotus there. That's a bit further down the order now, I think. But that car, good to see that car out there. There's 13 yet to pit. That's Matt Fazy. So who is the lead in pit stop? I think it's the Sam Laidlaw driven Seat, isn't it? It's now in 8th. Who's I think pulled away now from James Ramsden, who's taken over from Ben Rushworth.
Yeah, Ramsden in 10th at the moment.
And then Andy Schulze is catching them quickly. He's only 17 seconds behind Ramsden and was 5 seconds quicker on the last lap. So, and he's got ahead of Dave Griffin, who remember was third earlier. So Andy Schulze is bringing that BMW 46 M3 into a strong contending position,
Well,
I suggest.
his best lap time is a 1:42.17, which is pretty competitive, isn't it? When you look at Marston and Swift, they've both lapped in the 140s, but nobody else, apart from the Laidlaws and Rushworth, have really been lapping in that kind of pace, I don't think, that's sort of in contention now. A bit further back, I think Adam Blair has as well. He was lapping the 142s, but they've dropped back quite a long way now.
Here he is. Here is Andy Schulze, experienced GT racer in the Torque Speed BMW E46 M3 again this year. And he then is going to lap the MX-5 we were talking about a moment ago. That's in a podium position at the moment in class. So through McLean's goes Schulze.
Clears, are we? Unfortunately.
Not had much rain in the UK lately, so therefore it's pretty dusty on the grass and on the gravel.
Yeah, that I think drivers now that were sort of thinking, oh well, we'll wait till there's another safety car period, probably or possibly ought to be thinking about making their move and making their pit stop now, because time is running out.
And they'll be running out of fuel as well, I suspect.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Some will be very tight on fuel, I suspect.
So here comes Schulze to lap Cam Walton's Toyota. So the gap to James Ramsden is now 4 seconds because he's caught another 6. So Andy Schulze might be passed on the next lap. And that is for second of the stoppers, although we wait for Andy Marston to come out the pit lane. So here comes Schulze over the curve, through the craners, down into the old hairpin. He's not quite using as much road as we saw in some of the sprint races. You need to conserve the car, make sure it lasts the full distance. And there's the leader, who's just put a lap on James Ramsden. They're in 2, and that is the car that Andy Schulze is catching.
That 97 car's got damage, hasn't it? Well, it's got the rear bumper flapping away. The car damaged by Dave Nolan.
Almost got driven into there by the Porsche Boxer, Michael Downing, as it got all quite busy. Yeah, that rear bumper is trying to escape the car. Well, certainly on one side it is. The other side not too bad, but with half an hour still to go, you'd think it might shake itself loose at some point.
Yeah, we see the Michael Downey car going through, the CWM Motorsport prepared car for the Michael, who works in insurance, 5th seat of racing in Club Enduro. He's inspired by his dad, Dave Downey to start racing in this. Dave, his father raced in this until 2019, I think, on his own right.
Michael Downey finished 8th in the class championship last year, and the Audi is off at Coppice. So we've seen dust at Coppice. Now we've got a car as well.
The wheel there, the left-hand wheel, looks like it's at an interesting angle, which suggests there might have been a breakage on that car on the way up the hill towards Coppice. So that's the 27 car of Will Beach. It is now beached, and the Audi RS 3 TCR car is out of the race.
The question is, did it just break by itself, or more likely was there contact at some stage?
You cynic.
Well, TCR cars are built to do long distances, therefore they generally don't. Well, generally they don't break without contact. So
no, it might just been a light touch there to damage it.
That's Scott Parkin's Golf.
I think it might be.
Is that at the end of the pit lane?
Just trying to figure out exactly where that is. We're looking through the fence, but it does look like, yeah, it's at Starkey's Bridge. So it's the number 12 car of Scott Parkin, who was the Class B sort of effective leader earlier on. There's Will Beach getting his helmet off. He's out of the race. So a couple of rapid drivers out of the race in quick succession, it seems. So that's number 12, we think, off. And here's number 13, Matt Fazy into the pit lane.
So there is Steve Hewson waiting.
He's only going to get half an hour. He's going to get about a third of, or a quarter of the race distance, isn't he? Being a 2 hour and 5 minute race.
Another driver that forgot to take their radio out before getting out of the car. Professional drivers do that as well, so not the end of the world. But now out of the seat gets Matt Fazy. The door is shut and then the fuel goes in.
I think I can see on the sort of timer on the steering wheel there, they've got Taz 5 minutes programmed in as the race distance, and I think that's saying there's 30 minutes left to go underneath it, which is about right.
So nothing was ticking away. So
it wasn't. It wasn't. But anyway. So Marshall looking at that. There's the 13 car, pink and blue, Intelligent Money Racing. Intelligent Money also involved in supporting the British GT Championship as well, of course.
Pictures taken on a selfie stick during the course of the pit stop there as well.
Yeah. That suckling in the background there. He's a man for a selfie stick if ever there was one. I'm glad to see that they've got the fuel tank colour coordinated there to refuel the car with a pink tank. That's impressive. So it's going to be Steve Hewson that will take over this car for the final sort of 27 minutes of this race by the time he gets in.
Still going slowly is that Lotus Elise, of now Steve Brockington, who I can't imagine if he's having the best time of his life driving that car at that speed. Here's the Class C leader, Paul Saviani, with Jonathan Hayes, the BMW 318 Ti, up across the line to complete 45 laps for that car.
Yeah, so we've got 28 minutes to go. Not everyone has yet made their stops though. Quiver equipment down on the order nevertheless, although it will change. Number 1, Carl Swift leading, 187. George Haler in second place. Third is number 5, Jonathan Packer, leading Class B at the moment. 4th, number 13, Steve Hewson in the pits. 5th is number 51, Luke Handley. 6th is number 37, Andy Marston. 7th is number 91, Chris Plaskett. 8th is number 100, the Laidlaws. 9th is 191, Oliver Owen. And 10th, having made his stop, number 69, Andy Schulze. So he's making progress in the right direction. Class C, currently being led by the Hayes and Subiani BMW 318 Ti. That is the number 66 car, isn't it? Originally a compact cup car, but now with a 2.8 litre engine.
Andy Schulze and Dave Griffin have got past James Ramsden, and Dave Griffin there is the quickest car on the track. And he's catching Andy Schulze, who's only a couple of seconds behind. They just got past this car, James Ramsden, in the Seat. There's a second place car in Class C, by the way. That's Tim Hartland with Rory Baptiste, who turns his way up through Coppice. And there's Andy Marston, the Class pit stop leader, the Class A pit stop leader. You mentioned he was up there. He's in 5th position and a long way ahead of Sam Laidlaw and Andy Schulze and Dave Griffin. There's the Ginetta G40. I think with a bespoke rear wing on the back, I don't think that's part of the G40 normally, and that is now driven by Chris Webster. I feel like Chris Webster raced Giannetta's in the Giannetta Championship at one stage.
Not sure.
Might be making that up.
That car, 2.5 litre Geotech engine aboard it as well.
It's also not standard.
No.
Good to have a G40 in the championship again.
Yeah. No, of course, see the G40s racing in the various Giannetta manufacturer championships. In various different guises. 26 minutes of this race left to go. Still quite a few drivers to make their pit stops, and they've only got 11 minutes left to do it now.
Matthew Tidmarsh said they've had 3 days in the car since it's been brought out of long-term storage by Chris Webster. So perhaps he did race in the G40 Championship.
You're adding 2 and 2 together there.
Hopefully.
Hopefully making 4, yeah.
Race leader Cole Swift is yet to pit. Has got to do so in the next 10 minutes. Same for George Haler. So Jonathan Beeson's not going to get much driving. That Sayat was sat in the Snetterton paddock for the last couple of days.
Oh, right.
Part of the Paul Sheard awning of Mazdas. So that car's now been transported to Donington Park, thankfully.
Someone on the YouTube comments was mentioning that they'd seen one of those cars, one of the TCRs at Paul Sheard's premises recently, so that was probably the one we're talking about.
That was absolutely right. So Marston, is 55 seconds ahead of Laidlaw. So it's certainly between him and Swift, isn't it, for the win?
You would think so, yes.
And
Barring
then
anything strange.
And Andy Schulze has had an issue because Dave Griffin and James Ramsden are ahead of him. This happened at Snetterton last year. He was so quick, and then every now and again there'd be a really slow lap where presumably he'd had an issue. So Andy Schulze has lost positions, and therefore what is kind of net third is looking good for the Laidlaws again. Meanwhile, though, Matt is continuing to be busy in the pit lane, and let's see who he's caught up with next.
Yeah, thanks guys. Down here with Matt, who's just jumped out of the number 13 machine. Matt, that was a really long stint there, left it right to the last few minutes.
It was. I think Neil was actually trying to torture me, if I'm honest. That was tough. That was seriously tough. I really thought that he was going to try and... I thought he was going to bring us in below an hour. How long was I out for?
About an hour and 30 minutes.
How long's left of the race?
Just under 30 minutes now.
So Steve's got hardly anything to do. See, that's just typical of him. That really is typical of him. Puts me in for the hard work. Do I get to say hello to people? Oh, well, in which case, anybody who knows me watching, I'm sure Sarah is, hi. And please bear with me tomorrow at work. I'm going to be absolutely knackered. Any other questions you got?
What do you reckon Steve's going to do now? You're looking at your class position. Do you reckon you can win that?
I hadn't got the data on who had not stopped in our class that's currently ahead of us on track. Was I first in class when I came in?
The boys will be able to tell us upstairs in a bit, but you were up there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the car seems to be going well. It was my first time in that car, so I'm still getting used to her. But it was really, we didn't think that we'd get close to some of the Golfs. So, yeah, to have that sort of pace, especially as my first time in the car, I'm quite happy.
You're happy, are you? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we after my dismal performance in qualifying, I honestly thought that we'd be struggling to get, anywhere into the top 15. So to see that we were running something like 4th overall and first in class, I think when I came in, I'm reasonably happy with that. Obviously we'd like to be, 2 laps up on everybody, but that's not going to happen.
And I have to say, we've got the onboard camera in your car, some great dance moves through that safety car. We saw it all.
Oh, did you see it? Did you get my hand puppet? Oh, brilliant, good stuff. That was for you, Sarah, that was. The hand puppet was for you.
That's a new career.
Well, to be honest with you, it relieves the boredom. And you always tend to think that when you guys are watching and it's a safety car and we're trundling around like, Aunt Ninny on a Sunday shop, you need something to watch. So I thought at least if I can entertain you, and I promise you I'll do more of it, and at some point we'll have to get some tunes in the car, get that blasting over the live stream. You can dance at home, I'll dance in the car. It's going to be a much better way to race, I promise.
You'll have your own show.
I hope not. I got enough to do.
Matt, well done.
Thank you, sir.
There we go, Matt Fazy out the car, and we're going to see what the that car can do. He doesn't know where he is, but I'm sure, as once again, guys, you can tell us how that machine is getting on in the hands of Steve now.
At Donington Park, Easter Monday, that's where he is. Where is he? They are 15th overall at the moment, and within the class, they are 1, 2, 3, 4th, I think.
But the lead in pit stopper.
They are, with the 12 car, which was the car that they were racing with very hard for an hour or so, having retired.
Jonathan Packer was about 15 seconds behind early on. He's still out there, not pitted. Here's Sarah Dennis in the Renault Clio as she turns her way round the old hairpin. She runs in 36th overall.
Yep, marketing manager, started racing in 1997 in Stock Catch, had 15 years out and returned just last season.
Chris Freeman has stopped, I think. He hasn't come through lately in his Golf. He was fairly well up at one point.
Yeah.
So all these Golfs that we heard from there's less of them now, it does seem, because a few of them are stopped around the circuit. 481 there is Edward Christie in his BMW E36 M3, turning there into Coppice Corner. So there's only 5 minutes left before the pit window shuts, and we've got a number of cars inside the top 10 that haven't pitted yet. Andy Schulze, by the way, has got back past James Ramsden. So, and he's only 6 seconds behind Dave Griffin, so he's trying to catch Dave Griffin. That'd be, I reckon, for net 4th place in the race, behind the Laidlaws, who are 40 seconds up the road. So they could get a podium in their first race in the Club Enduro. Here's Andy Marston, who's battling for the lead, but his bonnet is flapping about quite a lot there as he headed down into the S's.
Yep, that's right. So let's see how that pans out. Make sure he's not going to have any problems in the remaining 19.5 minutes left to go in this race. Still quite a good number of cars out there. We have lost several, but we've probably still got getting on for 40 cars left in this race. Just under 20 minutes of the race left to go. Is that the green Soul car?
Yeah, he's gone a bit quicker now. He's into the 143s.
And where are they running? They're 21st, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. So, good to see. There's not many of these 36s left, but it is an E36 that's got the lap record round here, and that has not been beaten in the course of this race.
I don't know why you need to see what's going on in the commentary box, but there you go. There's a shot of what's going on in the commentary box for those of you at home, and this is what we can see out of our window, which is not an awful lot. We do most of our commentary from the screens, as you can see, and we can just about see a few yards of the pit lane. There's the 87 car, the 187 car, I should say. That is the George Haler car that has now been handed over, has it not?
Yes.
To Jonathan Beeson.
And it's in a good position. It's inside the top 10 and should get past 3 of the cars that are yet to pit. So it's a good fight back from the back of the grid.
So that will be, yeah, a good result, I think. They'll be happy with that comeback.
I think they're gaining a place before the end because they're only 3 seconds behind James Ramsden.
Yeah.
Well, the Ramsden is getting quicker now. He's only a couple of seconds off what Ben Rushworth did in that car.
Is Andy Schulze going through? How's he getting on now?
Well, he had that moment when he went off or whatever happened. So he's got back past Ramsden.
Just in his personal best lap as well, hasn't he? 142 dead.
And he's trying to catch Dave Griffin again.
And
There is Griffin coming out the hairpin, so we're going to see the gap now to Andy Schulze, who comes out the hairpin behind the McGann.
And also behind Steve Houston as well in the number 13 Porsche Cayman.
Shame Matt didn't ask him about the penalty he's got, but Matt Fazy, because I'm sure we've got an interesting answer to that.
Oh, there was an interesting answer to any questions, including some that weren't asked.
The Audi TT's still going after problems, but down in 24th for Ryan Parkin.
Yeah, there he is now, the number 11 car. It was started by Adam Blair. Just behind him is the Flying Tangerine Racing Chris Webster Janetta.
Right, the leader's in the pits, I reckon.
Well, he didn't have a lot of choice, because if he left it another lap, he would have been sort of dicing with it being up against the 15-minute pit window closing.
And the car's back out the pit. So there's Cole Swift. So where's Andy Marston? Is he behind or ahead? Not sure.
We'll try and piece all of this together in a few moments. And there goes the Laidlaw car just out over the line. You could just see that. We could see that out of our window as well. There's the TEGIWA Racing Yaris, Cam Walton, pedalling that solo. Be very interested to find out what Cam's made of this in race, but it seems to, touch wood, have been reliable. It's the number 50 car, it's running in 20th position overall. Of course, this is in Class A, that's because it's on power to weight, and I imagine that the Yaris weighs quite a lot less than some of the other cars in that class as well. A smaller car in stature.
I guess it's still quite a big car for what it is, isn't it? Like compared to the Civic alongside it.
But Yaris are bigger than they used to be.
Yeah, exactly. So Cole Swift's come through, he is still leading. So I think he might have an extended margin, if anything, over Andy Marston. Here's the Class C leader.
Yeah, with something training, I think it's just a bit of bodywork, isn't it, on the bumper. Training from the back of the 66 car, Paul Subiani, the Canet Racing car. Johnny Hayes had that for the first part of the race.
20 seconds is the lead gap between Swift and Marston.
That should be enough, shouldn't it, I would think,
Yeah.
for Carl Swift, which is quite something really when you consider what happened at that second restart, which was a bizarre off at Redgate Corner.
So presumably Jonathan Packer and Luke Handley are also in the pits. So therefore shortly we will get a read on if Steve Hewson is leading Class B. And the Class C leader just goes through there. Or Paul Saviani with a good gap over Tim Hartland. And third in that class is the Mini. The Mini Cooper S now driven by Matthew George, who I want to say is former British GT driver, Matt George.
Yep, no, you're absolutely right. I did note that down earlier on. Where did I note that? Yeah, British GT, Euro GT4, ADAC GT Masters as well. So a very experienced driver.
He snuck in without a professional driver penalty as
yes,
well.
There's a few that I think could, you know, maybe by the letter of the regulations they don't get one, but they're certainly, you know, very experienced and quick drivers. He describes his occupation as a, you know, performance and development driver, so it's his occupation.
But well put to not put professional for this championship.
Yes, well. Number 70's got a 5-second penalty now as well. That's the car that's now been driven by Steve Hutchison, that was started by Hammy Venables, but he's running now in 17th.
So shortly we should get a full read down on the order once the Packer and Handley stops are completed.
Yes, because we've got 13.5 minutes left to go in this race.
So Hewson came through 3 minutes and 22 seconds behind Jonathan Packer. 3 minutes in the pits, plus running down the pit lane, stopping, pushing the car back out again after the stop. Might be quite close, I'd imagine. So we will find this out very shortly. We wait for Volkswagen and Porsche drivers to make their way to the end of the lap. I think that was Hewson in the background, heading down towards the S's.
Possibly.
So in about half a minute we should get a read on that. But here's our Class C leader, Paul Saviani, and not sure if we've seen that car right at the sharp end of Class C recently.
There is the 67 car, Julian McBride. Where's Julian running?
15th.
15th. We've not really seen much of him during the course of this race. The Jeff Steele Racing prepared car, S55 3-litre engine for the 54-year-old sales director. Started racing the M3 Cup in 2016, but decided he was more suited to long-distance racing. He's a disabled driver as well, so there's quite a lot of adaptations to that car to enable him to race. And the TWP Lotus has finally called it a day as well, by the looks of it.
Yes. That's somehow lasted almost the whole race. So Steve Hewson has gone through and leads by 2.9 seconds, but he has his 5-second penalty to overcome over Jonathan Packer. So the Class B lead battle is very much on. So 2.9 seconds, Hewson to Packer. There's only 10 more seconds back to Luke Handley. So the top 3 in Class B are separated by very little. But on sort of aggregate with the penalty, Jonathan Packer is in front on times.
Just looking at the car on circuit, on screen now, the 100 car, Steve Laidlaw and Sam Laidlaw. That's been a good performance from the two of them. Running in 3rd place overall. Sort of thick end of a lap behind the leaders now, but nevertheless acquitting themselves well.
Absolutely, their first race here in the Club Enduro Championship. I don't think Sam Laidlaw's done that much racing before now, and there's a car off at Coppet.
And it's the Marsden car, isn't it? Ramsden, I should say.
That's it, yeah. From 7th. They had just been passed by Jonathan Beeson for 6th.
Yes, so that's the car that Ben Rushworth started. James Ramsden has taken it over. Corton Miller prepared. Stay out there on TCR.
Just looking here at Julian McBride, who you were talking about a moment ago. Great new livery on that car. And he turns his way just behind the Laidlaws we were talking about.
I think he sat out most of 2021, didn't he? Julian McBride. Not seen too much from over the past couple of years. Probably worth a quick rundown on the top 10 now. Number 1, it is Carl Swift leading by 21 seconds on number 37, Andy Marston in 2nd place. In 3rd place is number 100, Sam Laidlaw. In 4th place is number 34, Dave Griffin. In 5th place is number 69, Andy Schulze. In 6th place is number 187, Jonathan Beeson. In 7th place, number 2, James Ramsden. 8th place is number 44, David Trigg. 9th place is number 43, Steve Cheatham. 10th and leading Class B, but not on corrected times just at the moment, is number 13, Steve Hewson. Then 11th and 2nd in Class B is number 5, Jonathan Packer. 3rd in Class B at 12th overall is number 51, Luke Handley. In Class C is number 66, Paul Subiani, that is ahead in 28th place overall, 29th. And 2nd in Class C is number 98, that's Tim Hartland. And 3rd and 30th overall is the Matt George Mini Cooper S that he is sharing with Neville Jones.
The Class C battle isn't that close at the moment. I know there's not long to go, but Matt George is lapping massively quicker than the two in front. He's 5 seconds faster than Tim Hartland, and on the last lap 9 seconds faster than Paul Subiani. He's a minute behind the leader, so even at that rate of catch it's not quick enough, is it? But Matt George is pushing on in the Mini. Interestingly, in this race, no lap records have been broken, and we're about a second off, I think, in each of the classes for whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason is. I don't think anything's particularly changed in the regulations that would necessarily change things too much. But it's been competitive down the field. There's been battles all the way down the field. Is that the Ramsden car looked to be coming a little bit slowly out of Goddard that time? I think it's all right.
Just behind the Class C new leader, because Paul Subiani has been off. So Tim Hartland has taken the lead of Class C and is 10 seconds ahead of Paul Subiani. And then Matt George is only another 20 seconds back, going much, much quicker. So the Class C battle may not yet be over. Here is the Class C leader, just behind the Class B leader, actually, being lapped. So we look at the Class B leader there, Steve Hewson on the road. There's Jonathan Packer, who's the Class B leader in reality. And there's Roy Baptiste, who is the Class C leader on the road and in time as well.
Well, it's Tim Hartland, we think, aboard that car now. Roy Baptiste that started it. Tim Hartland, well, both of them have raced Golf GTI Mark IIs together. Hartland and Baptiste. Hartland at the wheel at the moment. Also raced a few races in Hot Hatch last year as well.
So Jonathan Packer is getting closer to Steve Hewson. So it's kind of a shame this penalty is overhanging them, isn't it? Because otherwise this would be boiling up into quite a battle.
It would for the last 7 minutes of the race. I'm just having a look at what's going to go on. Yeah, unless Subiani has another off, I don't think George is going to catch him. No, I wouldn't have thought so. Just having a look at that battle for second in Class C, because I don't think it's going to go anywhere other than Tim Hartland now, unless he has a problem himself.
There's the race leader, Cole Swift. He's now 25 seconds ahead of Andy Marston's BMW. Those two have been the clear of the pack during the course of this race.
Yeah, it says on the side of the car it's C. Swift and R. Baker, but Rob Baker not driving the car today. Seems to be focusing on the team management duties at Area Motorsport.
So, cross.
Oh, and that is the 70 car that's off, isn't it? That's the car of Steve Hutchinson, the Elite Works car, which was started by Sammy Venables. Yeah, just looking for a safe place, but it's such a busy circuit, there's not many gaps in the traffic for it to rejoin. Oh, and the 481 car also in strife. That's Edward Christie's E36 M3, the Class B car. The 70 car back into the race. And there's the 481 car just about to rejoin. Oh, they were all off. They are all off now. This is the number 10 car. That's the Andrew Howard car. Andrew Howard's car's going to stop the car that was started by Rob Fennick.
Christie for the pits.
Yeah, didn't have too far to get there, did he?
That Class C battle, Paul Sabiani's going quicker now, so he's catching Tim Hartland again. There's only 5 seconds between them. As Andrew Howard in his Beach Dean overalls gets out of the car. It nearly made the end, that one.
It did, which would have been impressive.
Yes.
5 minutes to go.
Oh, another Lotus in strife. Here is the car that was driven is driven by Tom Gladys, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not going at full rack power, is it? Not at all.
There's Dave Griffin. He's had a really good run. I think he had a slower pit stop, but up there in 4th place in the E90 car, the only E90 racing M3 I think we've really got in the country. Certainly not many of them anyway.
He is certainly emerging from credit from this race, isn't he? Along with the Laidlaws as well as someone you put a star next to the name of, because they've had a good performance. And Andy Schulze certainly has had a good try. He's done another fastest lap, hasn't he?
The two Class C leaders are separated by half a second now. So Tim Hartland has been caught by Paul Sabiani. So that's strange. It was a long lap, wasn't it, for Sabiani? There's Matt George in 3rd across the line. So here are the two leaders then, absolutely together in Class C. Tim Hartland ahead of Paul Sabiani, so it's 3:30 ahead of 3:18 Ti here. Yeah, they're still 20 seconds ahead of Matt George, so he's not going to catch them.
I wonder if they pitted to take that bit of bodywork that was trailing off, or if they had to for the black and orange flag. Possible, because it's not there now.
Yeah, so perhaps, it was about a half a minute longer. Oh.
And check flags out a little bit early with cars stranded around the circuit, so the win will go to Carl Swift then in the Seat Leon TCR. Second, well, there he is. He's just taken the checkered flag with about 3.5 minutes early.
I'm not sure if he knows it.
Well, no, it's Carl Swift who'll be pushing on just in case that was an apparition. Second will go the way of Andy Marston, and then yet to finish will be the third place car. But here's the battle for Class C.
Yeah, a change round the outside into the S's on the final lap of the race. Comes Paul Sabiani. He hasn't made the best exit, so can Tim Hartland fight back down towards the Melbourne Loop to a last lap change for a win in the class, and it's in the class that didn't have overly many cars compared to the other two, but very competitive.
The two BMWs proving an even match, but yeah, I can't help but feel that must have been a late pit stop for the Hazen Sabiani, the Canet racing car. We saw it with that trailing bodywork. It's not got it now. It lost the class lead. It's got it back now from Tim Hartland. They're going to come out of the final corner, and it's going to be then the Paul Sabiani car that comes through, shared with Johnny Hayes, to win Class C of the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship.
And that's their first win in the championship.
It certainly is. So they'll be delighted with that. It's a great comeback on the last lap there. Carl Swift winning the race overall. Has Class B been through? Yet to be decided.
I think so, because Cole Swift is going to take the flag for a second time.
He is. So that will mean it, on correct times, it's going to be Jonathan Packer, isn't it, that wins Class B, because he was only just under a second behind Steve Hewson on the road in the Porsche Cayman, but Hewson had that 5-second penalty to bear from what Matt Fazy incurred in the first part of the race.
Yes, so
which was track limits.
So Matt's got to try and explain that to Steve, hasn't he, why they haven't won the race.
He gets all the best jobs, doesn't he? Does Matt Suckling down in the pit lane? Hopefully there'll be some officials there also to explain what's going on. A dramatic race, really. Carl Swift really coming back to win that race when at one point my heart was in my mouth and I thought he was going to be in the wall at Redgate.
Yes, and let's take a look at those results then for the first round of the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship.
Right, deep breath, this could take a while. The winner, number 1, Carl Swift. Second, number 37, Andy Marston. Third, number 100, the Laidlaws, father and son. Fourth was Dave Griffin, and another good drive from him. Fifth, and also on the lead lap, I think the last car on the lead lap, Andy Schulze had taken over from Matt Hampson. A good performance from the back of the grid for George Haler and Jonathan Beeson. Ben Rushworth and James Ramsden in 7th place for number 2. 8th to number 44, the Trigg and Dayburn Lotus Exige. 9th, 43, Steve Cheatham in the Porsche Boxster. 10th there on your screen, Steve Hewson and Matt Fazy in the Porsche Cayman. They won't have won Class B though. Jonathan Packett in 11th place will have done because he doesn't have a 5-second penalty attached to his name. 12th to number 51, Luke Handley. And another front-running Class B car, the Chris Plaskett Golf GTI as well, 16th place overall. A little bit further back. See if we can see who finished outside the top 20. Well, there we can see the confirmation of the Class C result. And less than a second between number 66 and number 98 there. 66, Johnny Hayes and Paul Subiani taking their first Class C victory in Club Enduro from Roy Baptiste and Tim Hartland and Matt George and Neville Jones with their Mini. And now we're into the cars that perhaps didn't make it all the way to the end. Some of these did. Sarah Dennis and James Miller. James Miller making his race debut. Sarah Dennis, something of a comeback. But we lost Scott Parkin quite a few laps from the end in the number 12 car. He was contending for the Class B victory. There we can see in the background the Beach and Bryce car that came to rest at Coppice Corner. No progress for the Together We Progress car this weekend to speak of. And more cars here that unfortunately didn't make it to the end with various mechanical issues and accidents that they picked up along the way. And the car that got least far was the Scirocco GT24 of John Maudsley and Stuart Mead, I'm afraid to say. Hopefully we'll see them back out next time with the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship. That is going to be at Croft at the end of May. So we'll look forward to seeing the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship back in action then. Still, although it's 25 to 6, 3 more races to go here at Donington Park today. We've got RLM Racing Bike Sports Championship up next, then 750 Motor Club Formula V and the Toyota MR2 Championship to round out the day. But in just a moment or two we'll head downstairs. Matt Suckling will be there ready and waiting to talk to our top 3. So Matt, it's down to you.
And here, Steve, many congratulations. We spoke to Matt after his pit stop. He was very enthusiastic about how he'd done and hoping for you to do the same, and you did exactly that. Well done on Class B victory.
Thank you. I think we may have a penalty, so I'm not actually sure the fat lady's sung on this one yet. But, I mean, great fun race. Matt did really well because we didn't get any traffic, didn't get through any traffic in quali. So I'd say really our quali performance wasn't representative of the car. But yeah, he pulled it well back together on the race, and then really it was just a question of trying to hold it ahead and stay ahead of the area golfs for the end of the race.
Do you know why you got the penalty at all?
I suspect it was a track limits. From my enthusiastic partner Matt.
We were keeping an eye. I think you might have pulled 5 seconds, but of course the race a little bit early finish there, so I didn't quite catch what happened. But a good race anyway. Yeah,
I'm not 100% where we landed, but yeah, great fun race. Brilliant to be back into the championship again.
And what is it like to drive the Porsche as well?
It's fantastic. I mean, everything's in the right place. They're designed to do this job. So yeah, it really is. It's a great car. We raced it a bit last year. We had a good result at Alton, and we raced with a couple of other clubs as well last year, really while we were developing it. And yeah, no, really happy with it. It's a fantastic thing.
Good stuff. Well done, Steve. Well done, Matt, as well. Congratulations to both you for the class victory there. Let's have a quick chat with our Class C victor as well. Let's have a quick chat. Both of you want to come in. It's entirely fine. Well done there. Congratulations. How was that for you?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, we were just sort of pacing most of the way, and then we had to come into the pits because we had a nudge from somebody and the rear diffuser was loose. So we came in, mad dash, obviously dropped a second, and I thought, right, this is more fun. Let's give it some. So the poor little thing, I was absolutely thrashing it, but just in the nick of time, just down the off McLean's, I think it was, got on the inside, and here we go.
Yeah, a couple of corners from end. Checker flag, of course, came out. You got it done, but a great race.
Yeah, it was brilliant. The weather's been nice. So on our little trusty shopping car's done it again.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Congratulations. We'll now have a quick chat with our race winner and Class A winner as well, which is Carl Swift. Carl, well done. Nice to see you again. Many questions for you. First off, what happened after the second safety car restart down at the first corner?
I underestimated the width of the oil slick, and I was too busy looking in my mirror, so absolute sideways, well, backwards into that first corner. 4 or 5 came past, and it was hard work, but fun. Getting back up there, and then Andy kept the pressure on for God knows how long. That was an awesome race. First hour was just unbelievable.
What a save, though. Save of the day, I think, and you must have been lucky to get on that gravel trap.
Yeah, lucky to get out of the gravel trap, and I had 2 back wheels that were like flat spotted to death, so I was just shaking my eyeballs out for the whole 2 hours, but luckily they held out.
The other question is, you're doing it solo today. That's another punishment, isn't it, for 2 hours?
It is, yeah. It's a while since I've done 2 hours, since we did 24 hours, because I was shared with Rob. But he's at TCR UK, well, was at TCR UK most of today, looking after 3 cars there, so he didn't make it back in time for quali to do his 3 laps. Yeah.
Apart from that, great race for you, great job. As you said, Andy was on your tail in the BMW, but the pit stops came around, it all kind of shaked itself out.
It did, yeah, a bit of a breather then, and the brakes came back and the tyres came back, so it was nice for the last 15 minutes.
Well, good stuff. You look like you've worked hard, but well done.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Good stuff. Well done. Carl Swift there taking victory then in the first of the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship races of the year here at Donington Park, and we can't wait till the next one. It's going to be hopefully just as action-packed with as many cars as well. Back to sprint racing next, because it's the second race of the day for the RLMM Racing Bike Sports Championship.